Eric had already put conditions on the garage room before June understood that the family had begun bidding on her. "You'd have your own entrance?" he said, carving another slice from the pot roast Claire had made. "Which is better for everybody. But the stairs get slick, and I'm not salting them every morning." "There's no bathroom up there," June said. "There's one downstairs." "In your house." Eric pointed his fork at her as if she had solved it. "Exactly." Across the table, Claire folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. "Our den has a bathroom nearby. Dean would need quiet when he has clients, obviously, and we'd have to talk about the catering schedule, but it's warmer than a garage." Dean smiled, "and less chance of raccoons." Everyone laughed except June. She had not asked either of them for a room. She had said only that her landlord was selling the duplex and that she had 90 days to move. Now her two adult children were discussing her as if she were an upright piano no one wanted but no one could admit to throwing away. June set down her water glass. "I found a tiny house." Claire blinked. "A what?" June showed them the photograph on her phone. Cedar siding, cream trim, 4 windows, a shallow green roof, and a porch just wide enough for 2 chairs. Dean leaned closer. "That's a fancy shed." Eric laughed so hard he had to cover his mouth. "Mom, you'd last one winter in that thing, then come begging for my garage." June waited until the laughter thinned. "I bought it this morning." The silence that followed should have felt like victory. Instead, June heard Walter's voice as clearly as if he were beside her, asking the question he had asked whenever she made a decision out of anger. "All right, Junie, what's it going to cost you?" 6 days earlier, the landlord had arrived while June was cleaning blueberry filling from one of Claire's white catering tablecloths. The stain had spread into the shape of Florida. June was dabbing at the panhandle when someone knocked. Through the glass in the front door, she saw Mr. Talbot holding a business envelope against his chest. He was a broad, apologetic man who owned 3 duplexes and never came himself unless something had broken beyond the abilities of his nephew, who considered duct tape a building material. June opened the door with one yellow rubber glove still on. "If it's the sink, it's behaving today." Mr. Talbot looked past her toward the bucket on the kitchen floor. "Is this a bad time? It's Blueberry. Blueberry doesn't care what time it is." That made him smile, but only briefly. He held out the envelope. The new owner would not be renewing her lease. Mr. Talbot was selling because his wife wanted to move closer to her sister in Arizona. They had accepted an offer from a man who planned to renovate both units and rent them furnished to traveling nurses. "You've got 90 days, he said. "I made sure of that. Legally, I only had to give 60, but you've been a good tenant." Good tenant. June stood with one hand on the door and the other sweating inside the rubber glove. "Does the buyer know I'm here?" "Oh yes, it isn't personal. People said that when the personal consequences belonged to somebody else." Mr. Talbot kept talking. He explained the market, his wife's arthritis, the excellent offer, and how quickly everything had come together. June nodded in the right places. She even told him Arizona's dry air might be good for his wife, though she had no idea if that was medically true. When he left, she put the envelope beneath the ceramic rooster on the counter and returned to the stain. Florida had become Georgia. Claire needed the cloths by Thursday for a retirement luncheon at the country club. 32 pale gray napkins were turning in June's washer, and 3 boxes of glass votive holders sat beside her dryer, waiting to be scraped clean. She switched from dabbing to rubbing. "Stop that," she muttered. Walter used to say she attacked stains as if they owed her money. He would come up behind her, remove the cloth from her hands, and read the care label with great ceremony. Walter had been dead 20 months, and June still turned sometimes to hand him things. She left the tablecloth soaking and carried the envelope to the small desk in the living room. The desk had come from Mercer Plumbing's first office, back when the office had been a corner of their laundry room, and Walter took calls with a towel stuffed beneath the door to muffle the washing machine. June opened the notice. She read it once as a tenant, once as the woman who had kept the company books for 31 years, and once as a widow with $1,143 coming in each month from Social Security. The language did not change. At noon, Claire called. "Please tell me Florida is gone." Mostly is a dangerous word. "It's pale now." "Pale blue?" "Pale blueberry." Claire sighed. In the background, metal pans clattered, and Dean said something June couldn't make out. "I should have known better than to let them take cobbler near white linen. You could buy darker cloths." Dark cloths look like a funeral buffet. June smiled despite herself. Claire could be funny when she wasn't afraid. Lately, she was afraid most of the time, of losing clients, of gaining clients too fast, of Dean buying equipment they could not afford, of discovering that the business she had wanted was mostly lists and hot boxes and people changing their minds about salad. June looked at the notice. Claire, I need to tell you something. Hold on. Claire covered the phone, though not well enough. Dean, the salmon is for Friday. Friday. If you thaw it now, we'll be serving regret. A door slammed somewhere. Sorry, Claire said. What? June could have told her. Instead, she looked at the boxes of votive holders and said, How many of these need to be cleaned? All of them, if you have time. I can do some tomorrow. They both knew Claire would not. Fine, June said. All of them. After the call, she opened her banking folder. The family believed the sale of the old house had left her comfortable. Eric had once called it a nice little cushion, although no one had asked the size of it. The house had sold for $286,000. The mortgage payoff took $94,000. Walter's final years took nearly $60,000 more, even with insurance. The furnace had failed 6 weeks before the closing, and the buyer's inspection found rot beneath the back steps and moisture in the crawl space. After commissions, repairs, debts, and moving expenses, June had placed $81,000 in savings. 18 months of rent, utilities, car repairs, and the ordinary cost of remaining alive had reduced it to $68,000 and change. It was not nothing. It was also not another house. June opened a real estate website and entered the lowest maximum price the search field allowed. The first listing was a burned structure described as ready for your vision. The second appeared to be missing an exterior wall. The third was a narrow lot beside the highway, with no house at all. She closed the computer. At 2, Eric let himself in with the key June had given him for emergencies. Hey, Mom! June was on the floor with a butter knife, scraping wax from a glass cup. Is someone bleeding? What? You used the emergency key. He looked at the key still in his hand. I knocked. I didn't hear you. Therefore, key. Eric was 41, 6 feet tall, and still able to become 12 years old around an available refrigerator. He opened hers, studied the shelves, and frowned. You don't have any ham? I didn't know I was expecting a raid. I skipped lunch. She pointed to the covered bowl on the middle shelf. Chicken salad. He ate it standing at the counter while telling her he needed to put a pressure washer in her garage for a few weeks. His own garage was full because he had bought a used fishing boat from a man at work. You don't fish, June said. I'm going to. Is the boat aware? He gave her the grin that had saved him from consequences since adolescence. It worked less well at 41, but not as much less as it should have. Then he noticed the envelope beneath her bank folder. What's that? Mr. Talbot is selling. Eric stopped chewing. The duplex? Yes. Can he do that? He owns it. That's not what I mean. June waited. When do you have to leave? 90 days. His face changed. Concern arrived first, sincere and quick. Then came calculation, the faint narrowing of his eyes, the inventory of rooms, stairs, money, inconvenience. Well, he said slowly, don't panic. I'm not panicking. You look like you're panicking. I'm scraping wax off 30 votive holders. This is my wax face. He ignored that. We'll figure something out. You're not going to end up on the street. The fact that he believed this was comforting made June tired. He finished the chicken salad, put the bowl in the sink without rinsing it, and kissed the top of her head. I'll bring the pressure washer tomorrow. After he left, June went into the garage. Eric's camping stove occupied one shelf. Claire's folding menu boards leaned against the wall. Len's old golf clubs had been there since Easter. There were 4 plastic tubs labeled Mercer Plumbing Records, though the retention period had expired on most of what was inside. June's own belongings seemed to have learned to stand sideways. At the back, behind the artificial Christmas tree, she found a box marked Walter Desk. She carried it inside and opened it on the rug. There were invoice pads, 2 brass hose fittings, a coffee mug with a chipped handle, and Walter's yellow measuring tape. Beneath them lay an old photograph of June and Odessa Bell at the Mercer Plumbing Christmas party in 2009. Odessa wore silver earrings the size of quarters. June was laughing so hard her eyes had vanished. Odessa had handled payroll for 7 years before leaving to care for her sister. They had stayed close for a while. Then Walter got sick. June began answering invitations with maybe, then stopped answering them at all. She sat back on her heels. Months earlier, while searching online for shelving ideas, June had found a listing for a tiny house. She had saved it because the cedar siding reminded her of a cabin Walter once promised they would rent and never did. Every few weeks she checked the listing, expecting it to disappear. It was still there, built for a retired cabinet maker's wife. Ground floor bedroom, wide doors, full-size shower, must be moved from current property. Reduced price, $59,000. June studied the photographs again. The rooms were small but finished with care. Shelves tucked beneath windows, drawers built into the bed platform, a narrow porch beneath the overhang. Must be moved. Land was the part that had always made the idea foolish. Then June looked at the photograph of Odessa. Behind the two women, taped to the office wall, was a picture Odessa had brought to show everyone after she bought her place outside town. 6 acres, an old orchard, and a pale farmhouse with a green roof. June searched for Odessa's number. Her thumb hovered over the call button long enough for the screen to dim. She touched it awake and pressed before she could become sensible again. Odessa answered on the 4th ring. "If this is someone selling burial insurance," she said, "I've decided not to die." June laughed, and the sound startled her. "Odessa?" There was a pause. "Well," Odessa said, her voice softening, "look what the wind finally blew back." June closed her eyes. "I need to ask you a strange question. Those are the only kind worth answering. Do you still have that orchard?" Another pause, longer this time. "Yes," Odessa said. "Why?" June looked around the duplex, the cleaned linens, Eric's empty bowl, Walter's desk, and the notice that had reduced her life to 90 days. "I think," she said carefully, "I may have found a house." "What kind of house?" "The kind that arrives on wheels. An RV?" "No. A tiny house." Odessa was quiet for so long that June checked the screen to make sure the call had not dropped. Finally, Odessa said, "How tiny?" 294 square feet. That is not a house. That is a number somebody made up to sell a hallway. June smiled. "It has a bedroom. Does the bedroom know it's in there?" "And a kitchen. A real kitchen. I've heard this speech before. My sister bought a countertop oven and spent 6 months calling it a second kitchen." June picked up Walter's measuring tape, running her thumb over the worn metal case. "The listing says the house has to be moved. I remembered your property." One syllable, but it closed the door. June set down the tape. "I'm not asking you to give me land." "Good, because you'd be disappointed. I'd pay rent, fair rent. We'd write everything down. That sounds very official for somebody who hasn't spoken to me in 5 years. 4? June. 4 years and 8 months. Odessa gave a low hum. "You always were good with figures." June looked at the photograph between her knees. "I should have called." "Yes, I kept thinking I would when Walter had a better week." And then, he stopped having them. Odessa's breath shifted against the phone. The hard edge in her silence remained, but it was no longer pointed directly at June. "I heard about the funeral late," she said. "Len put something online after it was over. It was small. That wasn't what I said." No, June had wanted the funeral small because Walter had become public property during his illness. People asked questions about his weight and his color, about the swelling in his legs, about what the cardiologist had said. At the service, June could not bear another room full of people inspecting how death looked on him. She had not considered how her silence might look to people who loved them both. "I'm sorry," she said. Odessa let the apology sit without rescuing her from it. Then she asked, "When do you have to be out?" 90 days. "And when can you come look at the land?" June's shoulders loosened, though she knew better than to mistake a question for an agreement. "Tomorrow, 11. Wear shoes that don't mind disappointment. The orchard is mostly ambition and poison ivy." After they hung up, June returned the photograph to the box and cleaned the remaining votive holders. She did not tell Claire about the notice when Claire arrived at 6:30, 20 minutes late and speaking through a wireless earpiece. Claire swept into the duplex in black slacks and a flour-smudged blouse, carrying 2 empty storage crates. "No, not you," she said when June greeted her. "I'm talking to Dean." June waited beside the stacked linens while Claire listened. "Because shrimp cannot sit in a van, Dean. It isn't a philosophical question." She tapped the earpiece, ending the call, and kissed June's cheek. "You're an angel. Blueberry is still faint. Then you're a mortal angel." Claire inspected the tablecloth under the kitchen light. She always found the flaw first. As a child, she had colored carefully inside every line and cried if a crayon broke. At 43, she could feed 200 people from a borrowed kitchen, but could not look at a pale stain without treating it like a character defect. I can put the centerpiece over it, she decided. Good. You got all the wax? Yes, I owe you. June glanced at the ceramic rooster, where she had put the notice after Eric left. You owe me $75. Claire looked up. June had meant it as a joke. Mostly. For the dry cleaning? Claire asked. For the labor. A small crease appeared between her eyebrows. Oh. Yes, of course. I just thought, you said you had time. I did. That isn't the same thing as offering? June could hear herself in Claire's tone. Not the words, but the careful accounting underneath them. All the years June had said, don't waste money, I'll do it. All the times she had corrected Claire's books at midnight and refused payment because family did not invoice family. Then, later, she had wondered why nobody understood the work had value. Forget it, June said. I was teasing. Claire's relief came too quickly. She squeezed June's arm and began loading the crates. You're coming Sunday, right? Pot roast. Eric said he might come. Does Eric know you invited him? He knows now. June helped carry the linens to Claire's van. In the driveway, Claire opened the side door, revealing silver beverage tubs, folded table legs, rolls of plastic wrap, and 3 cardboard boxes marked fragile in Dean's slanted handwriting. You need a larger van, June said. I need a husband who doesn't use the van as a shed. June thought of Eric's boat, then of her garage. I have something to tell you Sunday. Claire slid the linens into place. That sounds ominous. It isn't. Are you sick? No. Then tell me now. I need to think first. Claire studied her. For a moment, she looked less like a busy woman and more like the girl who used to stand in June's kitchen doorway, waiting to see whether her mother's mood was safe. All right, she said. But if you get married before Sunday, I'm not doing the catering for free. The next morning, June drove 11 miles outside town with a pair of Walter's old work boots on the passenger side floor. She had tried wearing them once after he died. Her feet slid inside them, and the thick leather rubbed her ankle raw. Still, she had kept them. Throwing away a man's shoes felt too much like admitting he would never need to stand anywhere again. Odessa's directions ended at a leaning mailbox painted with red apples. Beyond it, a gravel drive climbed between 2 rows of trees that had grown into untidy shapes. Some were bare and gray. Others carried small green leaves. Dandelions covered the ground beneath them. The farmhouse looked much as it had in the old photograph, except the green roof had faded and one gutter tilted away from the porch. Odessa came out before June parked. She wore denim overalls, a purple shirt, and the same silver earrings from the photograph. Her hair, once black, was now a soft white cloud cropped close to her head. June got out, holding Walter's boots. Odessa looked down. I said, wear bad shoes, not bring a dead man's feet. The words struck exactly where they were aimed. June stared at her. Odessa's mouth tightened. Too far? A little. I'm out of practice. So am I. For one unsteady second, neither moved. Then Odessa held out her arms. She smelled like peppermint and wood smoke. June pressed her face against Odessa's shoulder and discovered that grief could recognize a witness before the mind did. She held on too long. Odessa did not complain. When they separated, Odessa wiped one eye with the heel of her hand. Well, she said, now we've made it strange. It was already strange. Good. Saves time. June exchanged her loafers for Walter's boots. Odessa found 2 pairs of thick socks to stuff into the toes, then led her down a rutted path behind the farmhouse. The orchard covered less land than June remembered, or perhaps everything had seemed larger in photographs when she still lived in a 4-bedroom house. Odessa pointed out wine sap, Arkansas black, and golden delicious trees. Her late father had planted most of them. A few still produced well, but many needed pruning, feeding, or removal. Cal keeps saying he'll help, Odessa said. Then he arrives in loafers and takes home 2 bushels. Still charming? Professionally. They passed a collapsed chicken coop and came to a clearing near the back edge of the property. A rectangle of cracked concrete sat among high weeds. Beside it stood a utility pole and a capped pipe painted bright blue. My cousin had a mobile home here, Odessa said. She moved to Alabama 8 years ago, took the home, left every ceramic frog she ever owned. June walked the perimeter. The clearing was sheltered by trees on two sides, but open to the south. The farmhouse roof was visible through the orchard, close enough to see smoke rising from the chimney, far enough that neither woman would be able to monitor the other's breakfast. Does the water still run? It did last spring. Electricity's disconnected at the pole. Septic was inspected before my cousin moved, but that was years ago. You'd have to check everything. June nodded. And you'd need to find out whether your rolling hallway can make it down the drive without removing half my trees. It's 8.5 feet wide. Odessa turned slowly toward her. You know its width. I read the specifications. Oh, Lord. You're serious? June walked to the southern edge of the concrete. The boots made her clumsy. She imagined the cedar house there with its 4 cream-trimmed windows. She pictured a chair beneath the overhang, a kettle on the stove, silence that did not feel borrowed. Then she looked at the cracked pad, the leaning utility pole, and the nearest apple tree crowding the approach. How much rent? She asked. Odessa pushed her hands into her overall pockets. You haven't even seen the house. I've seen pictures. Pictures made my first husband look tall. I need a number. And I need to know if I can stand having you in my orchard. That hurt more than June expected, perhaps because it was fair. Odessa nudged a loose piece of concrete with her boot. You vanish when life gets hard. I did. You decide what people need, then get offended when they let you do it. June looked at her. Odessa lifted one shoulder. You asked to live near somebody who knows you. I asked about the land, same risk. A breeze moved through the weeds. Somewhere near the farmhouse, a piece of loose metal tapped steadily. June folded her arms. You lend money to Cal every time he calls it an investment. That is unrelated. You said his pressure washing business was going to change the county. He had a brochure. He had a borrowed pressure washer and your checkbook. Odessa's eyes narrowed. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. It began as a cough and opened into the same deep laugh June remembered from the payroll office. June joined her, though her face was hot. Fine, Odessa said. We're both fools. That may help. She proposed $400 a month after the house was connected. Nothing while the site was being prepared, with June paying for utility repairs and carrying her own insurance. No lifetime promises, no vague exchange of favors. Either could end the arrangement with 6 months' notice once the first year was complete. June calculated silently. Too much? Odessa asked. No. Fair. Don't sound so shocked. I'm counting moving costs. Of course you are. June took out her phone and opened the listing. Odessa enlarged each photograph with 2 fingers, studying the built-in cabinets and the narrow bathroom. Well, she said, it's prettier than a hallway. There's a bedroom. I see that. The bedroom looked surprised. June called the number before caution could begin another meeting in her head. A man answered with a weary hello. My name is June Mercer. I'm calling about the tiny house. Raymond Pike, he said. You want to see it? June looked at Odessa. Odessa pointed toward the driveway. If we leave now, we can be there by noon. I'm driving. Those boots have made you a public hazard. June told Raymond they were on their way. As they crossed the orchard, she felt the measuring tape in her coat pocket bump against her hip. She had brought it without remembering doing so. Odessa noticed the yellow case when June pulled it out. Walters? Yes. You going to measure the house or ask his permission? June closed her hand around it. I don't know yet, she said. Ask him later, Odessa said. Right now, buckle up. My brakes have opinions. Odessa drove an old blue pickup with a cracked dashboard and a peppermint tin wedged into the cup holder. She kept both hands at 10 and 2, leaned forward over the wheel, and criticized every vehicle that passed. Too fast. The next one slowed before turning. Too slow. You've become difficult, June said. I've become accurate. Raymond Pike lived 40 minutes away on a road that followed the river. The tiny house stood at the far end of his gravel driveway, partly hidden behind a white ranch house and a workshop with red metal siding. It looked better than the photographs and smaller than June's imagination. The cedar had silvered slightly around the door. The porch was 6 feet long and 3 feet deep, supported by temporary blocks. A green garden hose ran beneath the house, and an electrical cord as thick as June's wrist connected it to the workshop. A lean man in a canvas jacket came out wiping his hands on a rag. He appeared to be in his early 70s. His gray beard was trimmed close, but his eyebrows grew in whichever direction they preferred. June? She nodded. Raymond. His handshake was dry and careful. He greeted Odessa, then glanced down at the yellow measuring tape in June's hand. You brought your own. My husband was a plumber. Was? He died. Raymond nodded once, without the pitying tilt of the head June had learned to dislike. Mine are in every drawer, and I still lose them. A woman watched from the ranch house's back door. Raymond turned and lifted one hand. She waved, but did not come outside. My wife, Beverly, he said. She may join us, but mornings aren't always kind to her. He opened the tiny house door and stepped aside. Warm cedar and coffee met June at the threshold. The living area was narrower than it appeared online. A built-in bench ran beneath two windows. Across from it, a shallow cabinet held a small television. The kitchen occupied the middle of the house, with pale cabinets, a two-burner electric cooktop, a deep sink, and a refrigerator tucked beneath the counter. Odessa entered behind her and stopped. Well, she said. June waited. It's a very handsome hallway. Raymond looked at Odessa. She's here for balance, June explained. I see. The floor creaked near the sink. One cabinet door closed crooked. A brown ring marked the butcher block counter beside the faucet. June noticed these things with relief. Flaws made the house less like a temptation and more like an object she could evaluate. Raymond showed them the bathroom, where the shower occupied nearly half the width and a pocket door disappeared into the wall. Beyond it was the bedroom. A full-size mattress rested on a raised platform, surrounded by narrow drawers. June stood in the doorway. She had expected the room to feel like a compartment. Instead, afternoon light came through windows on three sides. The bed was low enough to sit on without climbing. A shelf ran along one wall, wide enough for a book, eyeglasses, and a cup of tea. Odessa sat on the mattress. You could sleep in here. That is the advertised purpose. I'm checking. Some of these places expect you to sleep in a ceiling cupboard. Raymond leaned against the doorframe. We didn't want a loft. We? June asked. Beverly and me. We planned to put this on property her sister owns near Asheville. Thought we'd spend 6 months there, 6 months here. What changed? Raymond looked toward the windows, the distance between what a person can do and what they can safely do. He said it without embarrassment, which made June understand he had practiced. Beverly's condition had progressed during construction. She could still walk short distances, but on bad days she needed equipment that did not fit through the bathroom turn. Her sister's land was also farther from specialists than they had realized. They had bought a one-level condominium 20 minutes away instead. I should have made this 4 feet longer and 6 inches wider, Raymond said. Thought I was being clever. June ran her fingers along the bedroom shelf. The wood was smooth except at one corner, where she felt a rough place beneath the finish. Did she ever live in it? 3 nights. She liked the rain on the roof. His voice shifted on the word liked. June knew that tense. It described things people still loved, but could no longer bear to want. They returned to the kitchen. Raymond demonstrated the drawers, the water heater, and a table that folded down from the wall. He was proud of the hardware and less interested in selling than in proving he had built the house properly. June measured the shower opening, the distance around the bed, the height of the porch step, and every cabinet deep enough to hold a plate. Are you planning to bring your own walls? Odessa asked. I'm checking. For what? June did not answer because she was not sure. Some measurements belonged to practicality. Others felt like a ritual Walter might recognize. Raymond watched her measure the space beside the refrigerator. You can ask a hauler to widen that orchard turn before you sign anything, he said after she described Odessa's property. Send them pictures. Better yet, have one come out. You know someone? I know 3. I trust one. He gave June the name of a transport company and warned her that moving the house was not the same as towing a camper. There would be permits for the route, temporary bracing, leveling at the site, and likely a separate crew for the porch. How much? June asked. The last quote I got was $5,800, but that was 15 miles. Your place is farther. Odessa whistled. And hookups? June asked. That depends what's waiting when you get there. Could be a few thousand. Could make you question all your life choices. Raymond, a woman called from outside, stop helping her not buy it. Beverly stood at the foot of the porch with one hand on a rolling walker. Her white hair was pulled into a loose knot, and she wore a red cardigan buttoned wrong at the bottom. Raymond went out immediately. He did not grab her arm. He placed his hand where she could reach it if she wanted. She ignored the hand and looked at June. Is he telling you everything that could go wrong? Most of it, I think. He built it twice. Once in his head and once out here. The first version had no expenses. Raymond looked offended. It had theoretical expenses. Beverly climbed the porch steps slowly, refusing assistance until the final few inches. Inside, she lowered herself onto the built-in bench and exhaled. June sat across from her. Odessa remained standing, studying the shelves. You fit it nicely, Beverly told June. Thank you, I think. I don't. My elbows were in 3 rooms at once. Bev. She ought to know. June liked her at once. Beverly asked where June planned to put the house and whether she had ever lived in anything so small. June told her about the orchard and admitted she had not. Our first apartment was smaller than this, June said. But Walter and I were 22. We owned 1 frying pan and thought sitting on the floor was romantic. Age makes furniture more important, Beverly said. So do knees, Odessa added. Raymond made coffee in a machine hidden beneath the counter. He moved around the little kitchen without bumping anything. June watched the practiced turn of his shoulders, the way he opened one drawer while closing another with his hip. The house demanded attention. Nothing inside it could be done carelessly. Beverly accepted her coffee in a handle cup. Why do you want it? June could have said affordability. She could have mentioned the ground floor bedroom, the wide doors, or the fact that her landlord had placed an expiration date on her address. Instead, she said, I'm tired of owning rooms for other people. Odessa looked at her. June stared into her cup. My last house had 4 bedrooms. After Walter got sick, 1 held medical supplies. 1 held things my children didn't have space for. 1 was supposedly a guest room, but nobody stayed overnight unless they needed something. I cleaned all of them. And now, Beverly asked, now I rent 2 bedrooms and use 1 for other people's boxes. Raymond sat beside his wife. A small house won't stop people from giving you boxes. No, June said, but I can stop accepting them. The conviction in her voice was ahead of the rest of her. She hoped no one noticed. Beverly did. You can do that without buying a house, she said. June met her eyes. If this is only to prove a point, Beverly continued, it's an expensive sentence. The words landed with Walter's question from the future June had not yet reached. What's it going to cost you? I need somewhere to live, June said. That's a better reason? They discussed the price at the fold-down table. Raymond had listed the house at $59,000. He had received inquiries from people who liked photographs and disappeared when they learned what transport cost. June asked whether the furniture was included. The built-in pieces were. The mattress was not. The compact washer in a cabinet near the bathroom could stay for $800. 7, Beverly said. Bev. It makes a noise during the spin cycle. It needs leveling. It sounds like a helicopter regretting its career. June wrote figures on the back of an envelope Raymond found in a drawer. House, washer, transport, porch removal, utility inspection, septic inspection, electrical reconnection, insurance. At $70,000, she stopped. The number was not a quote. It was a warning assembled from guesses. Odessa read the total upside down. You have that? Not if I intend to eat afterward. How much do you have? June looked at her. Right, Odessa said. Not my business yet. Raymond rubbed his beard. What can you put down? I haven't said I'm buying it. You've measured my cabinet hinges. June folded the envelope. I could put down 45 and still cover the move, assuming the site doesn't become a disaster. And the rest? I would need financing. A bank may not treat it as real property if you don't own the land, Raymond said. There was no judgment in it, only fact. June nodded. She had considered that in the abstract. Hearing it aloud made the entire idea feel childish. Beverly looked at Raymond. He looked back. Some conversation passed between them in the small movements of a long marriage. We could carry 14, he said. 2 years, 5%. I'd want it written properly. June's first reaction was gratitude. Her second was suspicion. Why? Because it's been sitting here 9 months and we close on the condominium in 5 weeks. Beverly sipped her coffee. Also, he wants someone to love his drawers. I don't require love. You use dovetail joints in the trash cabinet. Trash deserves standards. Odessa opened the cabinet and inspected the joints. June calculated the monthly payment. She added Odessa's proposed rent, utilities, insurance, and the amount she needed to save for maintenance. It could work. It could also fail in 6 ordinary ways before reaching the orchard. I need a transport estimate, she said, and utility inspections. I need to look at my budget when no one is watching me. Raymond nodded. Reasonable. Would you hold it until Sunday? He looked at Beverly. Sunday at noon, she said. After that, we let the next person measure the hinges. Before they left, June stood alone in the bedroom one last time. She put Walter's measuring tape on the shelf, stepped back, then immediately picked it up again. The room was not asking permission. It offered no promises either. Outside, Odessa waited by the truck. Well, she asked. June looked at the cedar siding, the shallow green roof, and the porch that barely held 2 people. I can't tell whether this is brave or stupid. Odessa unlocked the doors. Most things worth doing refused to introduce themselves properly. On the drive home, June's phone rang through the truck speakers. Eric's voice filled the cab. Mom, I need to bring that pressure washer over tonight. June looked at the envelope of figures in her lap. No, she said. There was a pause. No, not tonight. No, not to my garage. Eric laughed uncertainly. Where am I supposed to put it? For once, June allowed the question to remain exactly where it belonged. I don't know, she said. Eric did not answer immediately. Through the truck speakers came the soft roar of road noise, and, beneath it, his breathing. You don't know, he repeated. No, I told the guy I'd take it. Then you should probably find somewhere. Are you mad at me? June looked at Odessa, who kept her eyes on the road with the concentration of someone trying not to listen so hard that listening became rude. I'm not mad. You sound mad. I said no, Eric. That isn't a tone. He made a small, disbelieving sound. It's an empty garage. It isn't empty. That's the problem. What problem? June nearly laughed. She pictured the camping stove, the golf clubs, Claire's menu boards, and the expired plumbing records. None of those things alone was a problem. Together, they formed a life in which everyone had left something with June because she was reliable, stationary, and unlikely to say no. I have to move, she said. What? Mr. Talbot sold the duplex. I have 90 days. Why didn't you tell me? I tried yesterday. Then you ate my lunch. I knew something was off. That's why I said we'd figure it out. No, you said I wouldn't end up on the street. Well, you won't. I've got the room over the garage. Odessa's mouth moved. June knew without asking that she was counting the ironies. It doesn't have a bathroom, June said. We can work around that. The we in Eric's sentence meant June. I'm looking at another option. What option? I'll tell you Sunday. I don't like the sound of that. You haven't heard the sound of it. That's what I mean. When the call ended, Odessa waited until they had passed a church, a feed store, and a field occupied by one lonely black cow. He has your conversational habits, she said. Which ones? The ones where concern is a crowbar. June turned toward the window. He means well. I didn't say he didn't. The transport company sent a man named Sal Cooper to the orchard the next afternoon. He wore a bright orange cap and walked the drive twice before saying anything. On the third pass, he stopped beneath a low branch from one of Odessa's healthiest apple trees. This has to go. Odessa folded her arms. No. Then the house doesn't come through here. It's been producing apples since Carter was president. Sal looked up at the branch. Does it have another branch? That is a foolish question. He led them down the drive, pointing out where gravel needed to be added and where the truck would need room to swing wide. The tightest turn was near the collapsed chicken coop, not the orchard entrance as June had expected. If we remove part of the old fence, I can make it, he said. House is 8'6". 8'6" at the roof edge, June said. 8'4" at the walls. Sal looked at her, then at Odessa. She know every number? Only the ones that can disappoint her? He estimated $7,200 for the move, including route permits and basic leveling. The porch would travel separately. A tree service could remove the necessary limb and trim 2 others for around $900. Odessa continued staring at the branch. I'll pay, June said. That isn't the point. It's your tree. You can say no. I know what I can say. The words came sharper than the moment required. Odessa walked away toward the farmhouse. Sal lowered his voice. You two related? No. Huh. What? Nothing. Just has that feel. June found Odessa beside the old utility pole, pulling dead vines from the base. We can stop, June said. I'm not doing this if it harms the orchard. It's one limb, one producing since Carter was president. Odessa yanked a vine until it snapped. My father planted that tree. He also planted it too close to the drive because he did everything in straight lines and refused to imagine vehicles getting wider. She brushed dirt from her gloves. Cutting a limb isn't cutting down the tree, she said. I know that. I just dislike being told what has to happen on my own land. So do I. Odessa looked at her, and something passed between them that did not need explanation. They approved the estimate, pending the house purchase. The water line still worked, though the shutoff valve leaked. The septic company could not inspect until the following week. An electrician said the pole and buried line looked usable, but would need a new weatherproof panel. Every answer produced an estimate, and every estimate had a range wide enough to hide a disaster. June built a spreadsheet at Walter's desk. At midnight Thursday, the low projection left her with $12,400 in emergency savings. The high projection left $6,800. She adjusted food, fuel, and insurance. She removed the compact washer, then put it back when she priced laundromats and imagined hauling bedding through winter rain. She calculated the seller finance payment to the cent. At 1 in the morning, she closed the computer and found Walter's old coffee mug in the box on the rug. The chip in its handle had been there for years. June used to hide the mug in the back of the cabinet because she was afraid it would cut him. Walter always found it. It fits my hand, he would say. So does an unchipped mug. Not this hand. She sat in the dark, holding it. Walter would have worried about the small emergency fund. He would have questioned renting land beneath a house she owned. He would have walked the orchard with Sal, examined the utility pipe himself, and distrusted every estimate he had not prepared. He also would have loved Raymond's dovetail joints. The thought hurt enough to make her smile. Friday morning, Claire called while June was brushing her teeth. Emergency. June spat and rinsed. Medical or shrimp. Linens. Janice gave me the wrong count, and I have a cocktail reception tomorrow. I need 60 black napkins washed and pressed. When? Tonight? I can drop them at lunch. June looked at her spreadsheet. No. Claire went silent. I'm busy, June said. With what? Things. What things? The answer rose before June could soften it. My things. Claire laughed once. All right. I didn't realize this was a border dispute. Neither did I. I'm asking for help, Mom, and I'm saying I can't. You always can. There it was, offered as praise. June gripped the edge of the sink. Not this time. She spent Friday interviewing a tree service, calling her insurance agent, and reading the purchase agreement Raymond had emailed. Saturday she drove to the orchard again and stood on the concrete pad while a cold drizzle darkened Walter's boots. She tried to imagine the house in August, when the trees were heavy with fruit and insects. She imagined January, when the ground might freeze and the wind would strike the open south side. She imagined getting sick with Odessa, only a distant light through bare branches. She also imagined Eric climbing those slick garage stairs with a tray because the bathroom was downstairs. He would do it twice, perhaps 3 times, with sincere concern. Then his back would hurt. Then his work would become busy. Then June would apologize for needing water. On Sunday morning, she transferred $45,000 from savings. Raymond and Beverly sat with her at the fold-down table while she signed. The agreement financed the remaining $14,000 for 2 years at 5%. Raymond had numbered every page and placed blue arrows beside each signature line. Beverly sold June the washer for $650. It still sounds like a helicopter, she warned. I've lived near Eric's boat, June said. I'm prepared. When June finished, Raymond gave her 2 keys on a plain metal ring. They looked absurdly small in her palm. Congratulations, he said. June expected a thrill. Instead, fear moved through her so cleanly that she could feel it in her fingertips. Beverly reached across the table and closed June's hand around the keys. Don't make it carry more meaning than the axles can hold, she said. At Claire's that evening, June waded through pot roast, carrots, and Dean's account of a groom who had changed the reception menu 3 times. Len arrived late with a bottle of grocery store wine and announced that traffic had been criminal, though he lived 7 minutes away. June told them about the lease notice. Concern came first. Then the rooms. Eric offered the space above his garage, with warnings about the stairs. Claire offered the den, with warnings about Dean's clients and the catering schedule. Len suggested senior apartments 40 miles away. June listened until her phone passed from hand to hand, and the tiny house had been called a shed, a hallway, and one good tornado away from becoming mail. Then she told them she had bought it. The silence stretched. Dean's fork touched his plate with a small silver click. Claire stared at June as if the sentence had arrived in a foreign language. Bought it how? With money. I understand the general concept. Do you? Eric pushed back his chair. You bought a house without seeing if you could stay with family first? I'm seeing it now. That isn't fair, Claire said. No, June agreed. It isn't. Len reached for June's phone and enlarged the photograph. Where are you putting it? On Odessa Bell's land. Who's Odessa Bell? Eric asked. Someone I used to work with? Claire's face changed. You're moving on to a stranger's property? She isn't a stranger. When was the last time you saw her before this week? June did not answer quickly enough. Oh my God. Claire pressed both hands to the table. You gave nearly $60,000 to some man for a shed, and now you're moving in with a woman you haven't spoken to in years. Not with her. Near her. And I didn't give him $60,000. Eric heard the distinction. How much did you give him? That is not your business. His expression tightened as if June had slapped him. Dean cleared his throat. Maybe everybody should take a breath. I'm breathing, Claire said. I'm trying to figure out why my mother would rather live in a box behind somebody's orchard than in my home. June looked at the serving dishes crowding the table. Claire had cooked the carrots the way June liked them, with butter and dill. Eric had brought her favorite rolls without being asked. Their care was real. So was the humiliation woven through it. I don't want a room in your home, June said. I want my own. Claire sat back. For the first time that evening, no one had a joke. Dean began stacking plates, though 2 people were still eating. Len lowered June's phone. Does it have heat? Yes. A foundation? It sits on a trailer frame. It'll be leveled and secured. What about storms? The same thing people in manufactured homes do. Pay attention and go somewhere safer when they need to. Len nodded, apparently satisfied by answers no one else wanted. Eric was not finished with the money. You told me you didn't have enough to buy another house. I didn't. But you had $45,000 sitting there? June looked at him. I had more than that after I sold my home. The word "my" made him flinch. I thought most of it went to Dad's care. A great deal did. I'm not auditing you. You're doing an excellent imitation. Claire stood and carried the gravy boat toward the kitchen. Nobody is auditing anybody. We're shocked. That's allowed. Of course it is. You made a major decision in less than a week. I've been looking at the listing for months. Claire stopped at the doorway. Months? I didn't know I would need it. You never mentioned it. I mentioned it tonight. Everyone laughed. That was before we knew you were serious. June almost asked why seriousness was required before kindness, but the sentence felt too polished. Real arguments did not arrive polished unless they had been waiting a long time. Dean took the platter from Claire. For what it's worth, I think the house looks nice. Claire stared at him. What? It does? You called it a shed. A nice shed. Please stop helping, June said. Eric leaned forward. What happens when this Odessa woman decides she doesn't want you there? We have a lease. And when you can't manage the steps? There is one step. I can add a ramp. And if you need help at night? June's anger caught on the genuine fear beneath his questions. Eric had found Walter on the bathroom floor during the worst year. He had carried his father to bed and then sat in his truck for 40 minutes because he did not want June to see him cry. I'm not moving to another country, she said more softly. I'll be 11 miles away. You'll be alone in an orchard. Odessa will be nearby. The stranger who isn't a stranger. Eric, Claire warned. He pushed away from the table. Fine. I guess you've got it handled. He took his plate into the kitchen without scraping it. A strip of roast and 3 carrots remained, food June would once have wrapped for him automatically. Len poured more wine. I'd like to see it, he said. Everyone turned toward him. What? He looked around. It has dovetail drawers. You don't know what dovetail drawers are? Eric said from the kitchen. I watched a video. Dinner ended in stages rather than all at once. Len left with the extra rolls. Eric left without kissing June's head. Dean began loading the dishwasher and, to his credit, did not ask June which setting to use. Claire walked June to her car. The night was cool and smelled faintly of cut grass. Across the street, a porch light came on, illuminating an empty swing. "You could still change your mind," Claire said. "I signed the papers. You could sell it. I don't want to." Claire folded her arms tight across her chest. If Dad were here, he would never agree to this. June's car key pressed into her palm. "Don't use your father that way. I'm not using him. I knew him. So did I. He would have worried about you. He worried about rain when the forecast said sunshine. He took care of things." The words hung there. June knew Claire had not meant them as an accusation. That did not keep them from becoming one. "I took care of things too," she said. "I know that. Do you?" Claire stepped back as if distance might lower the temperature. "This is what you do. You make a decision, finish all the hard parts by yourself, then tell us when there's no room to respond. And if we don't respond perfectly, you act like we failed a test we didn't know we were taking." June opened her mouth, then closed it. Claire's eyes shone, which made her look angry rather than sad. "You could have called me when you got the notice. I tried. No. You said you had something to tell me Sunday. That's not the same as telling me. You were busy. I am always busy. You taught me to be." A car turned onto the street, and its headlights passed over them. Claire rubbed at a spot on her sleeve. "I'm not saying the den was a perfect answer. I'm saying I would have liked the chance to be better before you decided I wouldn't be." June wanted to point out the conditions Claire had attached within seconds: the catering schedule, Dean's clients, the unspoken exchange of work for shelter. But Claire's pain was not false, simply because June's was also true. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," June said. Claire nodded, but the nod did not mean acceptance. "Call when you get home." The next morning, June placed 4 pieces of painter's tape on the garage floor. Claire, Eric, Len, donate. The exercise felt childish until she began moving things. Claire's menu boards went beneath her name. Eric's camping stove, tackle box, and unopened package of boat seat cushions formed a growing island. Len's golf clubs looked lonely enough that June added the electric hedge trimmer he had lent Walter 7 years earlier. The tubs of plumbing records required more care. June opened each one, checked dates, and filled 3 bags for shredding. In the 4th tub, she found the company's old wall calendar from Walter's final year at work. His handwriting filled the squares until March. After that, June's took over. She sat on the concrete floor with the calendar across her knees. Walter's entries were short. Mrs. Garrett sink, Davis water heater, June dentist, 10:30. He had remembered her appointment. She had forgotten it entirely. Her phone rang. She wiped her face before answering. It was Sal. "My office reviewed the route," he said. "They won't approve the Orchard Drive. You said it would work. I said I could drive it. The owner says the grade by the entrance is too soft, and the turn past the coupe doesn't leave enough recovery room if the trailer slides. We're adding gravel," I told him, "and removing the fence." I told him that too. June stood, knocking the calendar to the floor. "Then why did you come out? To see if it was possible. I think it is. But I don't own the equipment. The tiny house had to leave Raymond's property before his condominium closing. June had 32 days. Can you recommend someone else?" There was a pause that answered first. "I can give you 2 names," Sal said, "but I don't know if they'll take it." June wrote them on the back of one of Walter's invoice sheets. The first company had no availability for 7 weeks. The second asked for photographs, then called back and declined. At noon, Claire arrived in her catering van. She opened the garage and found June standing among the labeled piles. "What is this? I need everyone to collect their things by next Saturday." Claire looked at the menu boards. "You're moving in 3 months. I have to clear the duplex before I can sort what's mine. You could have asked me. I'm asking now. With a deadline and floor labels, it helps me see." Claire crouched beside her pile. A white envelope protruded from the side pocket of her purse. She placed it on top of the boards. "What's that?" $75. June stared at her. "For the linens. I was teasing." "I know. That's why it bothered me." Claire loaded the boards without asking for help. When she was finished, she noticed the calendar on the floor and picked it up. "Dad's?" June nodded. Claire turned through the pages. Her thumb stopped at March. "I remember this," she said. "He wrote my birthday on the wrong day. He did that every year. He claimed the hospital moved it on my birth certificate. He claimed the hospital had poor record keeping." Claire smiled. It vanished almost immediately. "Are you keeping it?" "I don't know. Don't throw it away." The old June would have heard a command. The woman standing amid the labeled squares heard a request. "I won't," she said. Claire set the calendar on Walter's desk inside the house. At the front door, she paused. "Dean can help move the tiny house. Does Dean own a commercial truck? No. Then I'm afraid optimism isn't enough. I'm trying, Mom. I know." Claire left without taking the $75 back. June called Raymond. He listened while she explained the refusals. "I was afraid of that drive," he said. "You said it might work. It might. That isn't the same as someone risking a $100,000 truck on might." The distinction was reasonable. June resented him for it anyway. "What happens if I can't move it by your closing? We'll find somewhere temporary. Don't get ahead of the trouble. I'm already in it." Raymond gave her the third name from his original list, a woman named Mel Doss who moved historic cabins and oversized farm equipment. He had not mentioned her because she was expensive. How expensive? Ask sitting down. Mel arrived at the orchard the following morning in a mud-splashed black truck. She was a compact woman in her 50s with a gray braid and no interest in conversation before seeing the entire route. She walked the drive. She measured the turn. She studied the slope and the apple branches. "I can do it," she said. June's relief lasted until Mel named the price. $9,400. That includes the porch, extra gravel, and a steering dolly for the rear axle. My first estimate was $7,200. Then hire them. They refused. Mel waited. June disliked her and trusted her immediately. Odessa came down from the farmhouse carrying 3 mugs of coffee. June introduced them and explained the additional gravel, the dolly, and the branch. Mel pointed to the old wine sap. "I need 18 inches more clearance." Odessa handed June a mug. "When?" "Tree crew can come Friday," June said. Odessa looked at the branch. Small green apples had begun forming among the leaves. "Do it," she said. Friday morning, the saw bit into wood with a noise harsher than June expected. The branch shuddered, dropped, and struck the ground hard enough to scatter young apples across the gravel. Odessa bent and picked one up. June started to apologize. Odessa slipped the small, bitter fruit into her pocket. "It'll grow another way," she said. By Monday, rain had filled the tire ruts and turned the new gravel the color of wet cement. The electrician postponed the trench work. "Ground's too soft," he told June. "I put machinery in there now. You'll spend twice as much fixing what I tear up." Mel called that afternoon. "If the drive isn't firm by Thursday, we delay." "How long?" "Next opening is 3 weeks." Raymond needed the tiny house gone in 26 days. June stood at her kitchen window, watching water drip from the duplex eaves, and felt each deadline tightening around the others. "What if we add more gravel? In the rain? You'll own expensive mud." June thanked her, hung up, and called Odessa. "It will dry," Odessa said. "The forecast says rain through Wednesday." The forecast also said 40% today. Apparently we received everyone else's 60. Mel will delay, then she delays. Raymond can't wait 3 weeks. Then Raymond can panic. You've done enough of it for everybody. June pressed 2 fingers to her forehead. "I'm beginning to think I bought a house that can't go anywhere. Most houses can't. This one is supposed to." Odessa was silent a moment. "Come over tomorrow, we'll walk the drive." "In the rain?" "You planning to melt?" They walked it beneath 2 umbrellas, Walter's boots sucking at the mud. Odessa tested soft places with a shovel handle. The gravel near the orchard held, but water had pooled at the entrance where the county road sloped toward the mailbox. "My father used to dig a channel here every spring," Odessa said. "With what?" "That shovel." June looked at the wooden handle in Odessa's hand. "Your father was younger than we are. My father believed pain was proof of progress. We won't do it his way." They used the shovel anyway, taking turns while rain ran from the umbrella edges. After 20 minutes, Odessa went to the barn and returned with a narrow trenching hoe. After 40, June's shoulders burned. They cut a shallow channel through the roadside grass, enough to send the standing water toward the ditch. A pickup slowed. The driver leaned across the passenger seat and called, "You ladies need help?" "Yes!" Odessa shouted. June looked at her. "What?" he asked. The driver was Cal. He parked on the road and came down in polished brown loafers, a rain jacket, and irritation. "You couldn't call me?" "I could," Odessa said. "I didn't." Cal Bell was 56 and looked younger until he complained. He had Odessa's dark eyes and a salesman's ability to seem delighted by whoever might benefit him. He surveyed the mud. "This is because of that little house?" "Yes," June said. Odessa introduced them. Cal shook June's hand warmly, then frowned at the trench. "Aunt Odessa, you should have had the county handle this. The water is coming from my drive. They still might do it." By Thursday, Cal did not answer. He took the shovel. Within 10 minutes, his loafers were ruined. Within 20, he had widened the channel and found the blocked end of an old drainage pipe beneath the grass. "There," he said, breathing hard. "That ought to clear it." Odessa looked unimpressed, which June suspected was an effort. "You want coffee?" she asked. Cal smiled. "I want dry socks." Inside the farmhouse, Odessa set 3 mugs on the table. Cal removed his shoes near the wood stove and accepted a pair of thick pink socks without comment. He asked June about the house. At first, his questions were friendly. Then they became numbers: purchase price, moving cost, rent. June answered none of those. "You're smart," he said. "Property values out here are going up. I'm renting a piece of ground. But the house is an asset. It's a home. Same thing, if you do it right." Odessa set his coffee down hard enough to spill a little. "She isn't here to do anything with you." Cal raised both hands. "I was making conversation. You were measuring." June thought of her own yellow tape and almost smiled. Cal left an hour later in Odessa's pink socks, carrying his muddy loafers in a grocery bag. At the door, he kissed his aunt's cheek. She turned her face away but watched his truck until it disappeared. "He helped," June said. "He likes helping when there's an audience. We were the audience." Exactly enough. The sun came out Wednesday afternoon. By Thursday morning, the drive had dried to a firm, uneven track. Mel arrived at Raymond's before dawn. June and Odessa followed in the blue pickup, both carrying travel mugs and too much nervous energy. The tiny house looked different, raised from its blocks. Without the porch, it seemed taller, exposed. Raymond walked beside it, checking straps. Beverly sat in a lawn chair near the workshop, wearing her red cardigan and a blanket over her knees. When the house began moving, Raymond placed one hand on Beverly's shoulder. June stood a few feet away, feeling like an intruder at a departure that had nothing to do with her. The tires rolled over the space where the porch had been. A small rectangle of pale grass appeared beneath the frame. Beverly watched until the house reached the end of the driveway. Then she looked at June. "Now you worry about it. I already was. Good. Raymond can take a day off." Mel's crew stopped twice to check straps. June and Odessa drove behind the house for most of the route, except where Mel made them go ahead before the orchard entrance. Eric's truck was parked on the county road when they arrived. June got out. "What are you doing here? Making sure you don't tip your house into a ditch." "How did you know?" Len told me. Len stood near the mailbox, holding a folding chair and a paper sack of biscuits. He lifted one shoulder. "I thought people might need breakfast." Dean came 10 minutes later in the catering van with Claire's message that she had a luncheon and would arrive if she could. He brought a metal drink dispenser filled with coffee, 6 paper cups, and 2 moving blankets. June had not invited any of them. She was annoyed by how glad she felt. Mel walked the drive one final time, then positioned one worker near the trimmed wine sap and another by the collapsed coupe. The steering dolly beneath the rear axle gave the trailer an unnatural bend as it entered the first turn. The house passed the mailbox with 4 inches to spare. At the orchard, the rear wheels sank into a soft patch and stopped. No one spoke. Mel climbed down, inspected the rut, and ordered wooden mats placed beneath the tires. Eric moved forward to help. "Stay clear," Mel said. "I've pulled boats out of worse. This is not a boat." He looked at June, as if she might overrule the woman operating the equipment. June handed him a biscuit. "Eat," she said. The second attempt worked. The trailer rose from the rut, pivoted past the apple tree, and entered the clearing. Odessa held the small green apple from the cut branch in her palm like a worry stone. At 11:16, the tiny house settled onto its temporary supports beside the cracked concrete pad. It was not where June had pictured it. To make the approach work, Mel had positioned it several feet farther east, with the porch side facing the farmhouse instead of due south. June walked around it twice. "What's wrong?" Eric asked. "Nothing. I'm adjusting my imagination." Len unfolded his chair. "Looks like a house to me." "It looked like a house before," June said. "I didn't say it didn't." Mel's crew reattached the porch. Raymond inspected the frame and found one loosened brace. A kitchen drawer had opened during transport, scattering wooden spoons across the floor. Otherwise, the house had arrived intact. June unlocked the door with her key. Eric stepped in behind her and immediately struck his elbow on the wall. "This is tiny. It's in the name." Dean turned sideways near the kitchen. "You could cater for 4 in here. You will not cater for anyone in here." 3? June looked at him. 2 people and a cheese board? Len opened the trash cabinet. "These the dovetails?" Raymond, entering behind him, brightened. "Yes." The 2 men bent over the drawer, as if it were a rare mechanical achievement. Odessa stood in the doorway, blocking most of the remaining light. "Well?" June touched the counter. Through the windows, she could see apple trees, wet grass, and the pale roof of Odessa's farmhouse between branches. "It's here," she said. Odessa nodded. That was the general plan. Claire arrived after the crew had gone. She wore a black chef's jacket and smelled of roasted garlic. Her hair had escaped its clip at the temples. She climbed the porch, entered, and looked around without speaking. June waited for the joke. Claire opened a cabinet. She sat on the built-in bench. She stood in the bedroom doorway and studied the windows. "It's nice," she said finally. "You don't have to say that." "I know." She ran her hand over the kitchen counter. "Where's your table going?" "It isn't." "The walnut table?" "It won't fit." Claire stared at her. "That table has been in every house we ever lived in, and now it won't." "What are you doing with it? Selling it, probably." Claire's expression sharpened. "You can't sell it. Do you want it?" "I don't have room." June waited. "That doesn't mean sell it." There it was again. A thing no one could house, but June was expected to preserve. "I'll give you until next Saturday," June said. "If you find room, it's yours." Claire walked to the far window. Outside, Eric and Dean were arguing over how to stack the leftover gravel. Len remained in his folding chair, eating the final biscuit. "You've decided everything," Claire said. "No, I'm deciding my things." Claire turned. For a moment she seemed ready to argue. Then she nodded once. The trench work began the next day and stopped within an hour when the excavator sank past its tire rims. Rain started again before noon. The electrician would not return for 9 days. June still had the duplex, but she was paying rent, orchard preparation costs, insurance, and the first installment to Raymond. The narrow emergency reserve on her spreadsheet shrank below the number she had promised herself she would never cross. That evening, she sat alone on the tiny porch while rain tapped the green roof. The house had no power, no running water, and no steps sturdy enough to survive the season. An orange extension cord lay coiled uselessly beneath the window. From the farmhouse, Odessa's porch light flashed twice. June had not known they had a signal. She flashed her phone light back. A minute later, Odessa appeared between the trees under a wide black umbrella, carrying 2 bowls covered with dish towels. "I made stew," she said when she reached the porch, "and before you get proud, I made too much on purpose." June moved aside. There was barely room for both women, the bowls, and the umbrella. For the first time, barely felt like enough. Odessa balanced her bowl on one knee and watched rain pour from the porch roof. "You'll need a gutter," she said. "There is a gutter. You'll need one that sends water somewhere besides your left shoe." June moved her foot. "I'll add it to the list." "How long is the list?" "Financially or emotionally?" "Financially. Emotionally is cheaper." Odessa snorted and tore a biscuit in half. They ate with their shoulders nearly touching. The stew was thick with potatoes and carrots, the kind June had made for Walter after his doctor told him to reduce salt. Walter would eat 1 bowl, add salt to the second, and believe the first had earned it. Odessa pointed her spoon at the dark clearing. "We should sign the lease before you spend another $1. I brought a draft." "Of course you did. It's in my car." "Of course it is." They went to the farmhouse where Odessa read every page at the kitchen table. June's draft stated the rent, the utility responsibilities, the 6-month notice, and what would happen if either woman died. Odessa stopped at that section. "You gave my death 3 paragraphs. Mine gets 4. Competitive even now. I'm trying to keep our families from arguing. My family can argue over a spoon nobody wants. Mine can argue over where I sleep while I'm still in the room." Odessa looked up. June wished she had not said it. The sentence sounded rehearsed, though it had simply been waiting. "What did they offer?" Odessa asked. June described the garage room, the den, and the senior apartments 40 miles away. She left out the laughter because repeating it felt like asking Odessa to take her side. Odessa signed the final page. You can sleep here if the utilities drag on. I still have the duplex, later, if something breaks. Thank you. You're going to say no the first time, aren't you? Probably. I'll enjoy asking twice. The clearing dried, the trench was dug, the electrical panel replaced, and the old water valve excavated from a nest of roots. Each repair cost enough to be memorable, but not enough to stop the project. June paid the invoices and stopped opening her spreadsheet after 9 at night. At the duplex, cardboard boxes multiplied faster than possessions disappeared. She began with kitchen duplicates. 3 pie plates became 1. 12 wine glasses became 4, though June drank wine twice a year and disliked washing glasses with stems. She kept Walter's coffee mug, 1 blue mixing bowl, the cast iron skillet, and the chipped ceramic rooster. The holiday dishes were harder. They had holly leaves around the edges and had been used for every Christmas dinner since Claire was 20. June wrapped 1 plate, then unwrapped it. She imagined the whole set inside Raymond's dovetail cabinets, leaving no room for anything needed in July. She called Claire. "Do you want the Christmas dishes?" Claire was speaking over a mixer. "Of course." "When can you get them?" A pause. "I don't know. Things are wild here. I need them gone by next Friday." "Mom, I'm not being mean. I'm moving. Can't you keep them until I figure something out?" "No." Another pause, longer. "Dean says we can put them above the refrigerator," Claire said. "Dean doesn't know what's above your refrigerator. What's above my refrigerator? Your wedding china." Claire sighed. "Right." June heard the mixer stop. In the sudden quiet, Claire said, "Sell them." "Are you sure?" "No, but sell them." June found a woman online who collected the pattern. She drove 2 hours in a silver sedan and lifted each plate as if greeting an old friend. "My mother had these," the woman said. "My brother sold them after she died. He thought dishes were dishes." June accepted $180 and watched the boxes leave. The dining table did not sell quickly. People admired the walnut, asked for measurements, then disappeared. Claire measured her breakfast room twice and admitted it would block the back door. "It isn't that I don't want it," she said. "I know. Maybe Eric could take it. Eric eats over his sink. He owns chairs. He stores boat parts on them." In the end, a recently retired nurse bought the table for her apartment. She arrived with a friend, a borrowed trailer, and not enough blankets. June supplied 2 moving quilts from the garage. When the table cleared the front door, one leg struck the frame with a familiar knock. Walter had made the same mark moving it into the old house. He had set down his end, examined the dent, and told June they should leave it because every house needed one flaw before people could relax. June stood in the empty dining space after the women left. 4 pale rectangles marked where the table legs had protected the carpet from the sun. She had expected letting go to feel lighter. Mostly it felt like discovering how much grief could weigh after the object was gone. Eric arrived for his belongings the following Saturday, 40 minutes after the deadline. "I had to borrow a trailer." "You own a trailer. It's under the boat." June did not ask. He loaded the pressure washer accessories he had brought before being forbidden the machine itself, the camping stove, the tackle box, and the seat cushions. When he reached the plumbing tubs, he stopped. "You're throwing Dad's records away? They're past the retention period. That doesn't mean trash them. What would you like to do with them?" He opened one tub, lifted a bundle of invoices, and read the top page. "Mr. Davis. I went with Dad on that water heater call. You complained the whole time. I was 16. You charged him $12 an hour for your labor. He said I worked like I was worth 8. June smiled. Eric placed the invoices back into the tub. "Maybe keep 1 year." "Which year?" "I don't know." She waited. He understood before she had to say it. He selected one invoice pad from Walter's first year in business and the brass hose fittings from the box on the rug. June kept the calendar and measuring tape. At the trailer, Eric secured the load with 3 straps, testing each buckle twice. "You could put the table in the room over my garage," he said. "It's sold." His hands stopped. "Already?" I asked if anyone wanted it. "You asked Claire. I asked both of you in a group message. I don't read those. That does make communication challenging." He pulled the final strap too tight. "You're getting rid of everything like you're angry at us." "I'm getting rid of things because my house is 294 square feet. You chose that." "Yes." The answer left no place for his accusation to land. He looked toward the duplex. "I could build a bathroom over the garage." June had not expected the offer. "With what money?" she asked. "I'd figure it out." and how long would it take? His eyes shifted. Eric, a while. The tenderness she felt was inconvenient. He was trying now, after the choice had been made, because the choice had frightened him into seeing her. I appreciate that, she said, but I still want my house. His jaw tightened. He nodded without looking at her. Before leaving, he removed Walter's old toolbox from his truck and set it beside June's front door. I took this after the funeral, he said. I thought I'd use the tools. I don't. June opened the lid. Walter's channel lock pliers lay beside a roll of thread seal tape and a small level with faded green fluid. You can keep them. I kept the fittings. That isn't the same. It's enough for me. He kissed the top of her head before he went. The utility inspection passed on a Tuesday afternoon. Water moved through the pipes without leaks. The refrigerator cooled. The lights came on one by one, making the cedar walls glow amber. June moved in 3 days later. Claire brought labeled food containers and rearranged the refrigerator until June asked her to stop. Dean carried Walter's desk through the door, discovered it would not clear the kitchen corner, removed its legs, and reassembled it beneath the living room window. Len hung the photograph of June and Walter washing dishes, the one where Walter's sleeves were wet and June's head was tipped back in laughter. Eric installed a new handrail beside the porch step. He tested it with his full weight, then said nothing. By sunset, everyone had gone. June had believed the tiny house would feel spacious once her large furniture disappeared. Instead, boxes filled the floor, the built-in bench, and half the bed. She had to turn sideways to reach the bathroom. She unpacked the kettle, Walter's mug, and one plate. The compact washer entered its spin cycle with a rising mechanical roar. The cabinet door rattled. June laughed alone so hard she had to sit down. Beverly had understated the helicopter. On her fourth morning, June stepped into the shower and waited for the water to warm. It remained cold. She checked the breaker, then the control panel. A red error light blinked beneath the counter. Raymond talked her through a reset over the phone. The heater clicked, hummed, and failed again. Probably the flow sensor, he said. I can come tomorrow. Tomorrow became the day after when his car would not start. The replacement part had to be ordered. You can shower here, Odessa said. I can heat water. You can also create electricity by rubbing 2 sticks together. That doesn't make it a good morning routine. June washed at the kitchen sink with a pot and refused the guest room. That night, the temperature dropped. The house itself stayed warm, but every cup and pipe held cold water, and June's joints ached from moving boxes. Odessa flashed the porch light twice. June pretended not to see it. The next evening, June carried a small overnight bag through the orchard. Odessa opened the farmhouse door before she knocked. I was promised 2 invitations, June said. That was before I learned how long you take to become sensible. The guest room had a brass bed, a sloping floor, and 6 ceramic frogs left by Odessa's cousin. June slept there for 2 nights while Raymond waited for the part. On the second morning, she found Odessa at the kitchen table, surrounded by bank statements, receipts, and unopened envelopes. Odessa moved one hand over the papers. Don't start, she said. June sat across from her. I haven't said anything. You're making your bookkeeping face. What face is that? The one that suggests numbers have disappointed you personally. June picked up a statement. 3 checks written to Cal had been marked as orchard expenses. What did he buy? She asked. Odessa poured coffee without answering. June looked at the amounts again. They totaled $4,800. Equipment, Odessa said. What equipment? His. June waited. Odessa pushed the sugar bowl toward her, even though June had not asked for sugar. Cal got a contract to clean the walkways at 3 medical offices. He needed a surface cleaner, hoses, and a larger tank. $4,800 worth? The tank had to be mounted. On what? His trailer. The trailer that carries the pressure washer he borrowed? Odessa's look sharpened. You've spoken to him twice. Once. He described the business while his socks dried. He has customers. I didn't say he didn't. June laid the statements flat. The checks had been written from the orchard account over 5 months. Odessa's handwritten ledger listed them beneath pruning, fertilizer, fuel, and tractor repair. These aren't orchard expenses. They came from the orchard account. That doesn't make them orchard expenses. It was the account with money. Did he sign loan papers? Odessa drank her coffee. Does he have a repayment schedule? He pays when he can. Has he paid anything? He cleaned the farmhouse siding. June placed the statement down carefully. That isn't a payment. It would have cost $800. Did you ask him to do it? It needed doing. Odessa. I offered you a guest room, not an audit. The words shut June's mouth. She gathered the statements into a neat stack. Odessa watched, irritated by the order, even as she aligned the sugar bowl with the salt shaker. You're right, June said. It's none of my business. I didn't say that. You said exactly that. I said you weren't invited to audit me. I wasn't. June stood. Odessa looked toward the window. Sit down. I should check on the heater. Raymond won't be there for another hour. I can wait at my house. Sit down, June. The command should have made her leave. Instead, the slight break in Odessa's voice kept her near the table. Odessa touched the top statement with one finger. I know what loans look like. June sat. I know Cal uses me, Odessa said. That doesn't mean every time he asks is a scheme. He works. He gets close. Then something breaks, or a customer pays late, or he believes the next job will solve the last one, and you believe him. I believe he believes himself. That was worse, June thought, because it allowed hope to renew without anybody technically lying. Odessa drew the statements toward her. His mother was my younger sister. After she died, I kept thinking I should do more. He was 37 years old, and I still felt like somebody had left him on my porch. Grief doesn't check birth certificates. No, it just starts cooking. June understood that too well. What do you want? She asked. I want to know whether the orchard can pay for itself this year. That's not the same as wanting to know what Cal owes you. I want to know one thing at a time. June nodded. They spent the next 2 hours separating the orchard's costs from Odessa's household expenses and Cal's loans. The orchard had earned modest income the previous autumn through roadside sales and a local cider maker, but pruning, fuel, and equipment repairs had nearly consumed it. Without Cal's withdrawals, it could cover itself if enough trees produced well. With them, it could not. June made 3 columns on a yellow pad. Odessa leaned over the page. Why does Cal get his own column? Because he is not fertilizer. You're enjoying this. A little. At noon, Raymond replaced the flow sensor. The hot water returned with a cough from the pipes and a low mechanical hum. June stood in the shower until the small tank began to cool. Steam clouded the mirror. The relief was so complete that she felt foolish for ever having refused Odessa's guest room. When she went to return the farmhouse key, Cal's truck was outside. His voice carried through the screen door. I said next month. You said that last month, Odessa replied. I had to replace the pump, then write down what you can pay and when. June stopped on the porch. Cal saw her through the screen. His expression shifted, not to guilt, but recognition. She's doing your books now? She helped me sort them, because that's different. Odessa opened the door. June, come in. I can come back. No, Cal said. Please. Apparently this is a business meeting. His pleasantness had become formal. He wore work pants and a navy shirt with Bell's Surface Cleaning embroidered over the pocket. A sunburn reddened the back of his neck. June placed the key on the table. Cal looked at the yellow pad. You put my name on a column? It helps separate the orchard expenses, June said. You discussed my finances with somebody who moved here last week? Odessa's shoulders lifted. They're my finances too. I told you I'll pay. I'd like dates. I can't give you dates when customers don't give me dates. You could give me $50 every week, Odessa said. That would be a date. Cal laughed without humor. So, that's the advice? $50? I didn't advise anything, June said. Right. You just organized. June recognized the accusation because Claire had made a version of it. June's order could feel like judgment before she spoke a word. She picked up the key again. This is between you. Cal moved aside to let her pass, but Odessa said, No, I asked for help. With the orchard, June said. Not your family? Same account, Cal said. No, June replied. That's the problem. His face hardened. Odessa touched the yellow pad. You owe $4,800. Starting Friday, I want $50 a week. If you have a good month, pay more. If you can't pay $50, call me before Friday. No more money until this is repaid. Cal stared at her. What if equipment breaks? Then you find another lender. A bank won't lend to me. I wonder why. The cruelty of the sentence surprised all 3 of them. Odessa's face changed first. Cal, no, that's fine. He pulled his truck keys from his pocket. At least I know where I stand. You stand owing me money. I stood here in the rain digging your drive out, and I thanked you. You offered coffee. You took my socks. He looked down as if he had forgotten the pink pair. For half a second, amusement threatened. Pride defeated it. Family helps family, he said. Odessa's chin lifted. Help has an end. Otherwise, it's just a habit. Cal looked at June as though the sentence belonged to her. Then he left. Odessa listened to his truck start. That went well, June said. I shouldn't have said the bank thing. No, he shouldn't act like $50 is an insult. No? Odessa sank into a kitchen chair. Could you disagree with one of us? It would be comforting. June sat across from her. You involved me because you wanted someone beside you when you said it. Yes. That wasn't fair to him. No. It also may have been the only way you would say it. Odessa rubbed both hands over her face. I don't like people who know me. That's why I disappeared for 4 years and 8 months. They looked at each other across the paperwork. Are you going to charge me? Odessa asked. For what? The bookkeeping? The answer no came automatically. June could feel it against her teeth. She swallowed it. We can trade 4 hours a month against $100 of rent, she said. Anything more, we decide separately. Odessa lowered her hands. That sounds suspiciously healthy. I don't like it either. They wrote the arrangement beneath the lease and both initialed it. The tiny house became easier to live in as boxes emptied. June learned to fold the table up before opening the bathroom door. She moved the chipped rooster 3 times before it settled above the sink. Walter's desk held only the calendar, the photograph, and a lamp. His tools fit beneath the bench. The limits were plain. She could not put something down and pretend to decide later. Later occupied floor space. Claire visited on a Wednesday carrying her laptop, 2 receipt boxes, and a paper bag of muffins. June looked from the boxes to her daughter. Is this breakfast or an ambush? Both. Claire entered and placed everything on the folded table. I need help. With what? The books. June unfolded the table. What happened? Nothing happened. People bring boxes when nothing happens? Claire removed her jacket. Dean thinks our spring numbers are good. I think they're imaginary. Why? We're busy, but the account is always low. Vendors are paid, payroll is paid. We've had more events than last year. Are clients paying you? Mostly. That isn't a number. Claire's mouth tightened. See, this is why I didn't want to ask. Because I ask questions? Because you enjoy the part where I should have known better. June looked at the receipt boxes. The old reflex stirred. Take the laptop, open the accounts, repair everything, and demonstrate love through exhaustion. She kept her hands in her lap. What do you want me to do? She asked. Claire frowned. Help. Look at everything. Reconcile 1 month. Set up a system. Teach you the system. All of it. How many hours? I don't know. Then we'll start with 2. Claire sat back. You're timing me? I'm defining the job. I'm your daughter. Yes. The small house had nowhere for either woman to retreat. Claire glanced toward the bedroom, then at the porch door. Do you want me to pay you? She asked. June heard accusation, embarrassment, and a real question. For this, yes. How much? $35 an hour. Claire gave a short laugh. You charged Odessa $25. Odessa gets the landlord discount. That nearly earned a smile. Claire opened her purse and took out a checkbook. Fine. 2 hours. You don't have to pay me in advance. I'd like to. She wrote a check for $70 and placed it on the table, her handwriting pressed hard enough to mark the duplicate beneath. June set a timer on her phone. Claire stared. You're serious? I'm trying to be. The books were not imaginary, but they were neglected. Dean recorded event deposits as revenue the day they arrived, even when much of the money belonged to future food and labor costs. Several completed events had unpaid balances. Vendor increases had not been reflected in their standard packages. The new hot boxes Dean purchased were listed under supplies instead of equipment, hiding how much cash they had consumed. Did you approve these? June asked. Claire studied the invoice. He said we needed them. That wasn't my question. We talked about it. Did you agree to spend $4,600? I agreed we needed more hot boxes. June heard Odessa defending the mounted tank. She softened her voice. Those are not always the same thing. Claire pulled the laptop closer. Can we fix it? Yes, but not in 2 hours. Of course not. We can identify what needs fixing. June showed her how to list unpaid balances, separate deposits from earned income, and update package costs. Claire learned quickly when June resisted taking the keyboard. At 1 hour and 58 minutes, Dean called. Claire put him on speaker. "Where are you?" he asked. "At Mom's." "With the books?" Silence. Then Dean said, "June, tell her the numbers are fine." June looked at Claire. "The numbers are numbers," she said. "The way you've entered them is not fine." Dean exhaled. "I knew this would become a whole thing." Claire's face closed. June ended the timer. The 2 hours were over, but the problem had just entered the room. Dean's voice lost its easy tone. "What do you mean? The way I entered them isn't fine?" "I mean deposits for future events aren't income yet. They're money in the account. They're also promises. You still have to buy food and pay labor. I know how catering works, June. I know you do." Claire reached for the phone. "Dean, she isn't saying you don't. That's exactly what she's saying. No, it isn't." June watched Claire's fingers tighten around the phone. In every disagreement with Dean, Claire seemed to become both more forceful and less certain. She could command a kitchen full of temporary staff, but one skeptical breath from her husband made her begin explaining herself. June recognized that too. Walter had never deliberately diminished her, but he could fill a room with confidence. She had learned to bring proof before opinions. "Come over," June said. Dean went quiet. "Both of you," she continued, "bring the current event calendar and the vendor list. We'll go through what I found. Tonight? No? Friday at 10. I have a site walkthrough. Then suggest another time." Claire looked at June as if she had pulled a live bird from a cabinet. Dean cleared his throat. "Friday at 2. "Fine. And how much is this costing?" "Dean," Claire said. "What?" "Apparently we're paying family now." June looked at the $70 check on the table. "For both of you, $45 an hour." Claire's head snapped toward her. "You paid 35. You didn't come in arguing before we started." Dean made a sound halfway between a laugh and a cough. "Friday at 2, he said. After the call, Claire closed the laptop. "You didn't have to do that. Charge him more? Make him feel stupid." "I didn't. You invited him here like he was in trouble. I invited him to see the numbers, with you in charge." June pushed the receipt box aside. "Would you prefer I come to your office?" "That isn't what I mean." "Then what do you mean?" Claire stood. In the tiny house, standing, made an argument feel official. You always know what the problem is before anyone else has finished describing it. That is often why people ask me, and if we don't do what you say, you get that look. What look? The one you had when I wanted to price the wedding packages lower. You would have lost money. That isn't the point. It became the point 6 months later when you raised the prices. Claire closed her eyes. This is the look. June felt the defense rising in her, and recognized, too late, that Claire was not disputing the answer. She was describing what it cost to receive it. "What should I have done?" June asked. "Let me make a mistake without making me feel like I was the mistake." The room went quiet except for the refrigerator. June looked at the timer, stopped at 2 hours. How many nights had she repaired Claire's books after everyone went home? How many corrections had she delivered with the bright efficiency of someone who wanted gratitude before exhaustion could turn into resentment? "I'm sorry," she said. Claire's shoulders dropped slightly. "I made it easy for you to give the books back to me," June continued. "Then I got angry that you did. You didn't act angry. I washed your linens for free and complained to the washing machine." A reluctant smile touched Claire's mouth. "What did the washing machine say?" "It has a more balanced view." Claire sat again. On Friday, Dean arrived carrying the vendor file and a box of pastries he had bought, rather than made. He barely fit at the fold-down table with June and Claire, and his knees pressed against the cabinet. "This is a hostile conference room," he said. "It encourages short meetings," June replied. For 3 hours, they worked through deposits, unpaid balances, and price increases. Dean understood the event side better than June had credited. He knew how many servers each venue required, which loading docks wasted time, and which clients would add 20 guests without warning. What he did not know was how his decisions looked together. The new hot boxes were useful. Buying all 4 in 1 month had consumed the cushion that made the account appear healthy. "I got a discount," he said. "You saved $600, June replied, "and created a cash shortage of $4,600. When you say it that way, that is the way." Claire placed a hand over her mouth, hiding a smile. Dean leaned back as far as the wall allowed. "All right, I should have spread it out." Claire looked at him. "You should have asked me before ordering 4. "I did ask. You said, We need more hot boxes. And you agreed. June looked from one to the other. The argument resembled Odessa's tank closely enough to be uncomfortable. What did you think you were agreeing to? She asked Claire, looking at options. What did you think she agreed to? She asked Dean. Buying them. Both answers were sincere. June turned the laptop so they could see it. Then the problem started before the numbers. They left with a weekly cash sheet, a list of overdue invoices, and an agreement that purchases above a set amount required both of them to approve the actual amount in writing. Dean wrote June a check for $135. For 3 hours? She asked, and the hostel conference room. As he went down the porch steps, he tested Eric's handrail. Solid. Don't tell Eric, he'll build me a second one. By the time the small green apples on the wine sap had grown heavy enough to bend the surviving branches, June had settled into the house's rhythms. She opened the porch door while making toast to let the morning air through. She learned that the compact washer stayed quiet if she leveled its front foot with a folded piece of cardboard. She bought 2 narrow shelves and discovered there was such a thing as owning too many baskets. Her 4 monthly bookkeeping hours with Odessa became Tuesday mornings at the farmhouse. They separated orchard sales from household money, tracked pruning costs, and made invoices for the cider maker. Cal's first $50 payment arrived on time. His second came 3 days late in an envelope tucked beneath Odessa's doormat. The third did not come until Odessa called him. He never apologized, but he stopped asking for more. Claire began selling boxed lunches at the orchard stand on Saturdays. The idea came from Dean after he saw the traffic during early apple season. This time, he arrived with written costs and a proposed percentage for Odessa. June did not prepare the spreadsheet for them. She wanted to. She made herself drink coffee instead. On the first Saturday, Claire sold out before noon. Odessa complained that the chicken salad attracted people who touched 6 apples before choosing one. She then asked Claire to bring twice as many boxes the following week. Eric did not visit the stand. He came to the tiny house on a hot Tuesday evening, wearing work clothes and carrying a real estate folder. Got a minute? June was trimming green beans at the counter. 1. He sat on the built-in bench. The folder remained on his knee. I found a place. What place? A house off Old Mill Road. 3 bedrooms, garage, a little over an acre. June waited for the reason he was telling her. The lot's wide, he said. Plenty of room behind the garage. For what? He gave her a look. This. June glanced around her kitchen. My house? Eventually. If you wanted, I don't. You don't know anything about it. I know I have a place. You rent the dirt. I'm aware. At Old Mill, we'd keep everything in the family. You could pay less than $400 a month, or nothing. We'd work it out. The we in Eric's sentence again meant June, but this time it also seemed to include money he had not named. How much is the house? She asked. $329. I got them down to $315. Can you afford that? My payment would be a little higher, but I'd have equity. That wasn't my question. He opened the folder. Inside were photographs of a beige split level, a pre-approval letter, and figures written on a legal pad. I need 15 more for the down payment and closing. 15,000? I'd pay you back. June set down the knife. I don't have 15,000 to lend. You had 45 for this. I spent 45 on this. Then I paid to move it, connect it, insure it, and repair things. How much do you have left? Not 15,000 for you. His mouth tightened. I'm not asking for a gift. Then ask a lender. They want more down because of the boat loan and my truck. June did not mention that he had chosen both. Eric tapped the folder. If you moved your place there, you could contribute something monthly. That would offset it. Does the lender know about that plan? I haven't brought it up yet. Then it doesn't offset anything. It would for me. There it was. The acre had not reminded him of June. June had become a solution after the numbers failed. I'm not moving, she said. He closed the folder. Odessa has you doing her books, Claire has you fixing the business, and somehow helping me is where you draw the line. Claire pays me. Odessa reduces my rent. I'm your son. Yes. That used to mean something. It still does. It doesn't mean $15,000. He left without taking the green beans June had offered. 2 weeks later, the Old Mill house sold to another buyer. Eric sent June a message containing only, they accepted cash. She called. He did not answer. The late summer storm arrived after a day of air so heavy the orchard seemed to hold its breath. June's phone warned of severe winds. Odessa called from the farmhouse. "Bring your overnight bag. The house is tied down." "I didn't ask about the house." June looked through the windows at branches turning their pale undersides to the sky. "I can shelter in the farmhouse," Odessa said. "You can shelter here with me." This time June did not refuse. She packed medication, her phone charger, Walter's photograph, and the folder containing the lease and insurance papers. At the last second, she added his measuring tape. Rain caught her halfway through the orchard. Odessa opened the door and pulled her inside as wind bent the trees. They waited in the interior hallway while the power flickered. Something struck the roof, rolled, and fell away. The storm passed in less than an hour. At dawn, June walked toward the clearing through leaves and broken apples. She saw the limb before she saw the house. It had fallen from an oak behind the porch, thick as her waist. The broken end rested in the grass. The other had punched through the shallow porch roof, split the railing, and driven one branch against the front door. June stopped beneath the dripping trees. The house had survived, but for the first time since buying it, she could not get inside. Odessa came up behind her in rubber boots. "Don't touch anything. I wasn't going to." "You were thinking about it." "I was thinking about the keys on my kitchen counter." "You have another door?" "Only the bedroom window, unless I've developed chimney skills." They walked around the house. The oak limb had struck the porch overhang rather than the main roof. One branch pressed against the door, another pierced the porch roof, and the railing Eric built had split at the lower post. Through the side windows, June could see no obvious damage inside. The kettle remained on the stove. Walter's photograph hung straight. Her bed was unmade in the ordinary way she had left it. That almost undid her. Odessa touched her elbow. "Come have coffee. I need to call someone." "You need shoes without water in them." At the farmhouse, June called the tree service that had trimmed the wine sap. They could send a crew by noon, but the emergency rate began before the truck left their yard. "How much?" she asked. The man gave a range. "Of course it's a range. Depends how the limb is loaded against the structure. It's loaded expensively." He laughed. June did not. She called her insurance company next and left a message. Then Raymond, because seeing his workmanship pinned beneath an oak seemed like news he deserved. "I'm coming," he said. "You don't have to." "No, but if a branch pushed the door frame, somebody needs to check the wall before the tree crew starts cutting." His car had been repaired. He arrived before the tree service with Beverly beside him in the passenger seat. She refused to stay at the farmhouse and had Raymond place a lawn chair at a safe distance from the clearing. "I wanted to see how the hallway handled combat," she said. "It isn't combat," June replied. "Then you should tell the tree." Claire arrived carrying breakfast sandwiches and 2 thermoses. Dean came separately after collecting tarps from the catering warehouse. Len brought a handsaw too small to cut anything larger than a chair leg. Eric arrived last, took one look at the limb, and went back to his truck for a chainsaw. "No," June said. He stopped. "No what? No chainsaw. I know how to use one. The tree crew is coming. We can get the door clear before they charge you $1,000. The branch is holding weight against the roof. So, we cut from the outside in." Raymond shook his head. "Not unless you know where the load transfers." Eric looked him over. "And you are?" "The fool who built the porch." Beverly raised one hand from her lawn chair, confirmed. Eric did not smile. He put the chainsaw back but remained near the house, studying the damage as if someone might ask him to defend his usefulness. The tree crew arrived with a bucket truck, rigging ropes, and 3 men who spoke mostly in gestures. They cut the limb in sections, lowering each piece instead of letting it fall. The work took 2 hours. When the final branch lifted from the door, June saw that the frame had twisted. The door opened only after Raymond put his shoulder against it. Inside, a hairline crack ran along the cedar paneling beside the frame. One kitchen cabinet had sprung open. A jar of sugar lay broken in the sink, glass glittering among white grains. Nothing else had moved. Claire came in behind June and exhaled. This could have been worse. June bent to pick up a piece of glass. "Mom, I see it." Claire handed her a broom instead. Outside, the tree crew fed branches into a chipper. Eric stood by the split handrail with his arms folded. "I told you," he said when June came out. She was tired enough to misunderstand. "Told me what?" "You're too far out here. An oak limb could fall in your yard. I'd be there. You weren't here. I came as soon as Claire called, and I'm grateful." He stared at her. "You always say grateful, right before you ignore me." June looked toward the farmhouse. Odessa and Beverly sat together, their heads close. Dean was helping Len fold a tarp that had never been used. Raymond knelt beside the porch post with a level. "What do you want me to do?" June asked. "Move the house to my place. Your yard isn't large enough." "It is if I take down the back fence and clear beside the garage. You said there wasn't room for the pressure washer. That was inside the garage. I'm not discussing the pressure washer. You could hook into my utilities. You'd save rent. If something happens, I'm 20 feet away." The offer entered June differently now. That morning, she had stood in wet grass, unable to open her own door. If Odessa had not been there, June would have faced the storm alone. If the limb had struck the bedroom roof instead of the porch, she might have lost far more than money. "How would the house get into your yard?" she asked. Eric's face changed, hope arriving too quickly. "From the side. We'd remove 2 fence panels. I measured after the old mill deal fell through." "You measured?" I was thinking ahead. June imagined Mel's steering dolly, another $9,000, another set of utility connections. The cost made the plan impossible unless Eric paid part of it. He seemed to read that. "I could cover some moving costs," he said. "We'd treat it as an investment." "In what?" "The property." "Whose property?" "Mine, technically. But when the tiny house is there, it improves everything. Who would own my house?" "You would, obviously. Unless later you wanted to put it in the estate with the main house. Keep it simple. Simple for whom remained unspoken." June agreed to look at the yard. The insurance adjuster came 2 days later. The damage was covered after her $2,500 deductible, but the policy would pay only to restore the porch as it had been. A stronger railing, better guttering, and roof reinforcement would belong to June. Raymond gave her a repair estimate that included his labor at a rate too low to be believable. "I'm not accepting charity," she said. "I'm not offering charity. I'm offering guilt. The tree wasn't your fault. The brace loosened during transport. That may be why the frame twisted more than it should have. Maybe. Probably didn't matter. Then charge properly." Beverly, sitting on the built-in bench, said, "He'll be unbearable if you don't let him help." Raymond frowned. "That is not relevant. It's the most relevant thing in the house." They compromised. Insurance paid a local contractor for the structural work. Raymond would rebuild the damaged trash cabinet door and adjust the pocket door, which had begun sticking after the impact. June paid him for materials and allowed him to refuse labor charges. Accepting that small kindness proved harder than signing the check for the deductible. Eric's yard was deeper than June remembered. The detached garage sat to one side, with a strip of grass between it and a wooden fence. The tiny house could fit if they removed a lilac bush, part of the fence, and an aluminum shed. Eric walked the space with a tape measure. "You'd face this way," he said, pointing toward his back door. "We could run a covered walkway later. I don't need one. It'd be good in winter. You could come in without dealing with ice." June tried to picture the cedar house there. Instead of orchard windows, she would see Eric's vinyl siding, the garage wall, and a neighboring roof. Where would the shed go? "I'd move most of that stuff into your built-ins." "My built-ins?" "Just the camping gear and some tools, things we'd both use." June had not camped since 1987. Eric continued measuring. "The boat could stay along the fence. If I extend the driveway, I can park the work trailer back here. We'd probably need you to leave enough turning room. You would park behind my house?" "Not all the time." He stepped over the tape. "And when I have people over, they could use your bathroom instead of tracking through the house. You'd like that. More company. My bathroom is 4 steps from my bed. They wouldn't use it late." June looked at the patch of ground where he had placed her future. Eric's intentions were not cruel. He wanted her close. He also wanted storage, utility money, an extra bathroom, someone to put food on the table when he came home tired, and an asset that would eventually remain after she did not. He wanted his mother, but he wanted her arranged around the edges of his life. "What happens to the house when I die?" she asked. Eric lowered the tape. "I don't know. You mentioned putting it in the estate. That was just an option." "For whom? Why are we talking about you dying?" "Because you were." He rolled the tape too fast, and it snapped against his thumb. "It would stay here, I guess, unless Claire wanted to move it. And the land would be yours. It already is." June nodded. His face reddened. "You make everything sound ugly." "No. I'm trying to hear it without the word family covering it. I offered you a safe place, with storage conditions. That camping gear fits under your bench. So do my things." Eric turned away. For a few seconds, June nearly called him back into agreement. She could imagine what refusing would cost. More money, another storm, another cold shower, another morning when she could not lift what had fallen. She could also imagine surrender happening one reasonable object at a time. "I'm staying at the orchard," she said. Eric stared at the fence. "Then don't call me the next time a tree falls." The sentence hurt him before it reached her. His shoulders stiffened as if he wanted to pull it back. June did not punish him by pretending it had not been said. "I hope you don't mean that." He went into the house and closed the door. The repairs took 12 days. June stayed in the farmhouse for the first 3, then slept in the tiny house while work continued outside. Hammers began at 7:30. Fine sawdust found its way into closed cabinets. Her emergency savings fell to a number she had once considered dangerous. Odessa offered to postpone 2 months of rent. June said no. Odessa asked again, as promised. This time June said, 1 month. "I'll add it to the end of the lease." Odessa made no celebration of winning. She simply crossed the month from her ledger. Claire and Dean brought leftover food from events. June accepted it only after Dean showed her that their new system listed leftovers separately from paid inventory. Len helped paint the rebuilt railing and left a handprint on one porch post. Cal arrived with his pressure washer on a Tuesday. Without asking for money, he cleaned storm debris from the siding and the mud from the concrete pad. "Are we counting this against what you owe Odessa?" June asked. "No." "Why not?" He adjusted the hose. "Because she'll count it against something I haven't done yet." He paid his $50 before leaving. The new porch roof had stronger braces and a gutter that sent water away from June's left shoe. Raymond rebuilt the cabinet door. Beverly mailed June a small rubber helicopter, which June placed on top of the washer. By October, the orchard stand had become a Saturday habit. Claire's boxed lunches sold beside Odessa's apples. Dean brought printed cost sheets without being asked. Len appeared most weeks and claimed his job was quality control. Eric stayed away. June invited him twice. The first time, he said he was working. The second, he did not respond. When the leaves began dropping, Claire asked where Thanksgiving would be. "Why are you asking me?" "Because it's always at your house." June looked around the tiny kitchen. "Not this year." Claire was quiet. Then she said, "Good." "Good? I love you. I don't love watching you cook for 2 days and insist you aren't tired." June smiled. "Your house? Our kitchen will be busy with orders through Wednesday." "Len's?" "Len owns one roasting pan and uses it to store extension cords." They considered restaurants. Odessa suggested the farmhouse, but June heard herself begin assigning dishes and stopped. She looked out at the repaired porch. "I can fit 8, she said. "In there? If everyone brings something and nobody expects a dining table." Claire's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure?" "No," June said. "That may be why I want to." She wrote 7 names on a page. June, Odessa, Claire, Dean, Eric, Len, and Cal. One chair remained unclaimed. June sent invitations with one sentence beneath the time. "There is room for 8 adults, so please ask." Before bringing anyone. Everyone answered except Eric. Eric answered at 11:42, the night before Thanksgiving. "Fine." June looked at the single word until the screen dimmed. She had assigned him roles. Not because roles were easy, though they were, but because he had brought her favorite kind to Claire's dinner the night everyone mocked the tiny house. She wanted to give him a small route back without naming it. She typed, "Please bring 2 dozen." The message showed, "Delivered." No answer came. By 8 the next morning, June's refrigerator held more food than it had since she moved in. Claire had prepared a turkey breast at the catering kitchen and promised to bring it hot. Odessa was making mashed potatoes. Cal had been assigned cider and ice. Dean would bring folding chairs, gravy, and containers for leftovers. Len was responsible for green beans after June made him repeat that canned mushroom soup was not a vegetable. June had made dressing in 2 shallow pans because her oven would not hold 1 large pan evenly. She had also prepared cranberry sauce, a pecan pie, and deviled eggs. That was already more than her assignment. She stood at the counter with a bag of sweet potatoes and heard Claire's voice. "I don't love watching you cook for 2 days and insist you aren't tired." June returned the sweet potatoes to the cabinet. At 10, she unfolded the wall table and arranged mismatched plates. 2 were plain white. 1 had blue flowers. 4 had belonged to Odessa's cousin and featured green frogs wearing seasonal hats. Len would receive the frog dressed as Santa Claus. June had sold the holly dishes without knowing how much their sameness mattered. They had made the old table look prepared before food arrived. These plates looked accidental. She placed silverware beside them and stepped back. The room could seat 8 if 4 people used the built-in bench, 3 satin folding chairs, and 1 occupied the narrow end near Walter's desk. It could hold 8 only if no one opened the refrigerator, bathroom door, oven, or any drawer while everyone was seated. This did not feel like hosting. It felt like solving a wooden puzzle. Odessa arrived first with the potatoes in a yellow bowl wrapped in towels. "You're wearing earrings," June said. "I do own them." The silver circles from the old photograph brushed Odessa's jaw. "You look nice." "I look like a woman carrying 6 pounds of butter disguised as potatoes." "Where do these go?" June pointed to the counter. "There is no counter," Odessa said. "There's 9 inches beside the sink. That is not a counter. That's a ledge with aspirations." They moved the coffee maker to the bedroom, the toaster beneath Walter's desk, and the chipped rooster to the bathroom shelf. The potato bowl fit beside the sink with half an inch to spare. Odessa inspected the table. "You kept the frogs. They were free." "Freedom has a price." Len arrived wearing a sport coat over a plaid shirt. He carried a casserole dish, 3 extension cords, and a bottle of wine. "Why the cords?" June asked. "They were in the roasting pan." "Where's the roasting pan?" "I needed it for the beans." She lifted the foil. The green beans were blistered with garlic and lemon. "These look good." I watched another video. Dean arrived next, maneuvering 2 folding chairs sideways through the doorway. He had gravy in a thermos and a plastic crate of containers. "Claire is 6 minutes behind me," he said. She burned the rolls. June looked at the time. Already? She was reheating them. "Why?" She said Eric might forget. He said he was coming. Dean's face made no comment, which was a comment. Claire entered carrying the turkey and a pan of rolls whose tops were several shades beyond brown. "They're rustic," she announced. "They're carbon," Dean said. "I can scrape them. You can sharpen knives on them." June took the turkey while Claire attempted to set the rolls on the counter. "There's no room," Claire said. "We know," Odessa replied. Cal arrived with cider, ice, and $50 for Odessa in a plain white envelope. He handed over the payment without ceremony. "This week and next," he said, "the medical office is renewed." Odessa slipped the envelope into her pocket. "Good." Cal looked around the house. "Where do you want the ice?" 6 adults considered the question. "In the washer," June decided. Everyone turned. "It's clean, it's waterproof, and nobody is doing laundry during dinner." Beverly's rubber helicopter had to be relocated to the bedroom beside the coffee maker. At 1:30, food occupied every horizontal surface except the top of Walter's desk. June had planned to eat at 1. Eric had not arrived. "Call him," Claire said. "He knows the time. He might think 2. The message said 1. Call him anyway. June called. It rang 5 times and went to voicemail. She placed the phone face down. "We'll wait 15 minutes, she said. They waited 25. The turkey cooled. The gravy formed a skin in the thermos. Odessa told Cal to stop opening the door and looking down the orchard because he was letting out heat. At 1:57, June sat. "We're eating." Claire glanced at the door. "He'll be angry," she said. "He can be angry with food in his mouth." They had just passed the potatoes when tires sounded on the gravel. June stood too quickly and struck her thigh against the table corner. Everyone's plate jumped. "Don't move," she said. Movement was nearly impossible anyway. She stepped onto the porch. Eric came through the orchard carrying nothing. Behind him walked a woman in a tan coat and a stocky man holding a supermarket pie. June recognized the woman after a moment. Marla Bennett was Walter's cousin's daughter, an insurance receptionist in Nashville whom June had seen at funerals and one wedding. The man was her husband, Vince. Marla smiled with visible uncertainty. "Happy Thanksgiving." June looked at Eric. He spread his hands. Their plans fell apart. Marla's smile vanished. "Our host got sick this morning. Eric said you had room." "I said there was room for 8, June replied. "There are only 6 cars, Eric said. "Cars don't eat." Vince looked toward the tiny house. "We can go. It's no trouble." "It's Thanksgiving," Eric said. "Nobody is making anybody go." June counted anyway. 6 people were inside. She made 7. Eric would make 8. Marla and Vince made 10. "We can squeeze," he said. "I'll stand." "There's nowhere to stand once the door closes." We can take food to Odessa's house. Odessa had appeared behind June in the doorway. No, she said. Eric looked at her. Why not? Because this is June's dinner. I'm not asking to move dinner. I'm solving a chair problem. You brought the problem, June said. His face tightened. I brought family. Marla touched his arm. Eric, really? We can find a restaurant. On Thanksgiving, we can eat pie in the car. Vince held up the box. It's a good pie. No one laughed. June felt the old machinery starting inside her. She could move the potatoes to the floor, unfold the extra chair, send Dean and Cal to the farmhouse for more seats, warm another can of beans, cut the turkey thinner, apologize to everyone, and prove that any boundary could be defeated by arriving at her door. She pictured the four-bedroom house, where tables had stretched through 2 rooms, and June had eaten standing beside the stove because every chair was occupied. I asked everyone to check before bringing someone, she said. I didn't see the message until late. You answered it. I said fine. That usually means you read the thing above it. You left a chair open, for you. Eric looked past her through the doorway. There's food everywhere. There is. So, what are you saying? I'm saying the invitation was for you. There isn't room for 3 more people. We can manage? No. The words settled between them. Eric's face changed the way it had at the dining table when June refused to discuss her savings. Only this time, the injury was public. You're turning away your own family over a seating chart. I'm not turning you away. You can come in and leave them outside. They didn't know you hadn't asked. I don't blame them. Marla looked miserable. Please don't fight because of us. We aren't, Eric said. This is about the house. No, June replied. It's about you deciding my no means you should arrive anyway. I was trying to make sure 2 people had somewhere to go, by giving away space that wasn't yours. His jaw worked. Inside, a fork touched a plate and quickly stopped. Vince shifted the pie to his other hand. Mrs. Mercer, we're sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. She meant it. June went inside, took 3 containers from Dean's crate, and began filling them. Claire rose to help. Together they packed turkey, dressing, potatoes, green beans, cranberry sauce, and 2 of the darkest rolls. Not those, Claire whispered. They'll travel well. Claire put slices of pecan pie into a 4th container and added plastic forks. June carried the bag outside. There's enough here for all 3 of you, she said. Eric did not take it. Vince did. Thank you, he said. Eric stared at the cedar siding, as if it had personally insulted him. You chose a shed over your son. The sentence entered the house behind her. June knew everyone heard it. She looked at the railing he had built and rebuilt after the storm. She looked at the orchard where he had come to watch the house arrive, at Walter's measuring tape visible through the window, and at the 2 embarrassed adults he had used to force her back into the person she had been. This house didn't make my family smaller, she said. It showed me who thinks I deserve space only when I'm useful to them. Eric went still. June's voice shook, but she did not take the sentence back. You wanted me over your garage if I worked around your stairs. Claire wanted me in her den if I worked around the business. Then you wanted my house in your yard so you could use the storage and bathroom. Every offer had a place for what I could do for you. None of them started with what I wanted. That's not fair. No, it wasn't. Eric laughed once bitterly. Enjoy your perfect little family. He turned toward the orchard. Marla handed June the supermarket pie. You should keep this. June shook her head. Take it. Trust me, Vince said quietly. We should leave something. He set the pie on the porch railing. They followed Eric toward the road. He did not look back. June remained outside until their figures disappeared among the trees. When she re-entered, no one spoke. Her plate waited at the narrow end of the table. The frog in a pilgrim hat smiled up at her from beneath a slice of turkey. I'm sorry, she said. Odessa picked up the potatoes. For what? For ruining dinner? You didn't. Claire looked toward the door. Her eyes were wet. He'll calm down, Len said. No one answered. Dean opened the gravy thermos. This has become structurally unsound. The skin had thickened into a brown disc. Cal lifted it with a spoon and held it above the container. Gravy lid, he said. Claire made a choke sound. Then she laughed. It was not enough to make anything painless, but it allowed them to begin again. They ate food that had cooled, gravy reheated in a saucepan, and rolls Claire scraped with the edge of a knife. Odessa told a story about her father chasing a goat through a church picnic. The story lasted 12 minutes and involved no goat until the final 30 seconds. Len dried dishes at Walter's desk because the counter was buried beneath leftovers. Dean washed. Cal carried containers to the farmhouse refrigerator. Claire swept crumbs from beneath the bench. Nobody asked June where anything belonged. They looked, decided, and adjusted. When the others left, Claire remained on the porch. "You were right," she said. June sat beside her. The air smelled of wet leaves and wood smoke. "That doesn't make me feel better. It wasn't supposed to." June folded her hands. "I could have let them in." "You could have. We would have managed. We always managed." There was no praise in the words. Claire leaned her shoulder against June's. "I did offer the den like a job," she said. "I didn't hear it until you said it. You were scared. I was also convenient." June looked through the window at the mismatched plates. "I trained you. That doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the training." They sat until the porch became cold. Before leaving, Claire handed June the supermarket pie. Vince had set it on the railing, but Claire had moved it inside before the damp reached the box. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Keep it in case Eric comes back." June placed it in the refrigerator after Claire left. For 4 days, it remained untouched. On the 5th, June cut one slice and ate it alone at the fold-down table. Eric did not call. June sent Eric one message the following morning. "I love you. What I said still stands. Both things are true." He did not answer. She called Marla to apologize for the doorway argument. Marla insisted the apology belonged in the other direction. "Eric said you knew we were coming," she said. "If Vince had told me the truth before we drove an hour, I would have made him eat that pie at a gas station." In the background, Vince said, "It wasn't a bad pie. It had a glue crust." June smiled. "I'm glad you had somewhere to go." "We went home, changed into pajamas, and ate your turkey. Honestly, it was a good Thanksgiving once everyone stopped talking." They did not discuss Eric further. The pie disappeared one slice at a time. June froze the final piece, though she knew by then Eric was not returning for it. Claire refused to become a messenger. This surprised June. "He asked if you were sorry," Claire said during a Tuesday bookkeeping session. "What did you say?" "I said he should ask you." "Thank you. He called me disloyal." "Are you?" Claire looked offended. "I'm loyal to whoever has the cleaner accounts." Their business had survived the cash shortage. It required uncomfortable calls to clients with overdue balances, higher package prices, and a pause on new equipment. Dean sold 2 of the hot boxes to another caterer and complained about the loss until Claire showed him what storage and insurance were costing. He then began showing the cash sheet to anyone who would look. On the first Friday of December, Claire came to the tiny house without a laptop, receipt box, or linens. She carried 2 cups of coffee and sat on the porch despite the cold. June kept waiting for the work to appear. "What?" Claire finally asked. "Nothing. You've looked at my hands 3 times. I was checking for a folder. I'm visiting." "Oh." Claire handed her a cup. "Try not to make it strange." They drank coffee while the orchard dropped the last of its leaves. Claire talked about a difficult corporate client, then stopped herself. "I'm not asking you to solve that. I know. You had the face. I have 1 face. You have at least 9. June let the client remain unsolved. Christmas dinner was held at Claire's. Eric said he had to work. Len looked at the empty chair, opened his mouth, and received such a look from Claire that he filled it with potatoes instead. June brought no centerpiece and washed only the dish she had used to carry cranberry sauce. It felt unnatural. It also left time to sit beside Dean while he showed her a new purchase request form. He had added a box labeled Spousal Approval. "I advised against the wording," Claire said from across the room. "I thought it was clear. It makes me sound like a permit office. You run a stricter review process than the county." Their argument held no real heat. Claire caught June watching and smiled. At the orchard, Cal continued paying $50 most weeks. When winter jobs slowed, he called before Friday as promised. Odessa complained about the missing payment, then admitted the call mattered more. In February, Cal came to prune trees. He brought his own gloves, wore work boots instead of loafers, and did not mention the value of his labor. He argued with Odessa over every 3rd cut. Odessa argued over the others, so he would not feel singled out. June kept the accounts at the farmhouse table, but no longer opened every envelope she saw. When Odessa asked her to review a bank statement, June did. When she did not ask, June poured coffee and looked elsewhere. The arrangement was less efficient. It was also friendship. Eric stayed absent through winter. June saw his truck once at a red light. He was 2 lanes over, looking straight ahead. She considered tapping the horn, but did not. When the light changed, he accelerated too quickly and disappeared around the curve. She missed him most in ordinary moments. A cabinet hinge loosened, and she thought of his confidence with the handrail. A fishing boat appeared for sale near the highway, and she wanted to send him a photograph with a warning that it might reproduce. She made chicken salad and reached for a bowl large enough to leave extra. She did not confuse missing him with owing him surrender. The first warm afternoon came in March. June opened the windows and shook dust from the porch mat. The repaired oak had dropped a thin branch near the concrete pad, small enough for her to drag toward the brush pile. When she returned, Eric was sitting on the porch step. He wore his work clothes. His hair needed cutting. A paper grocery sack rested beside him. June stopped several yards away. "The front door works," she said. "I know. You installed the handrail." "I remember." She waited. He stood. "Can I come in?" The question was plain. No emergency. No key in his hand. Yes. Inside, he looked around as if the house might have changed while he stayed away. The rubber helicopter remained on the washer. Walter's photograph hung above the desk. The chipped rooster watched from its shelf. Eric set the grocery sack on the counter. "What's that?" "Rolls." June looked inside. 2 dozen, still in their store packaging. "You're 4 months late." "I know. They may charge you a holiday fee." His mouth moved, almost a smile. June put the kettle on. Eric sat on the bench, but did not open the refrigerator. Neither spoke until the water began to heat. Finally he said, "The old mill house wasn't as good as I made it sound. No? The foundation had cracks. The garage wiring was a mess. The cash buyer probably did me a favor. Do you believe that? Some days." June placed tea bags in 2 mugs. Walter's chipped mug went to her. Eric accepted the plain blue one. "I was angry you wouldn't help," he said. "I know. I thought you could. I could not lend you $15,000. I didn't believe you. I know that too." He stared into his tea. "When Dad died, I thought the house money was going to be there," he said. "Not all of it. I knew there were bills, but I figured whatever was left would eventually come to Claire and me." June sat across from him. His fingers tightened around the mug. "I counted it before it was mine." "Yes." "I did the same with this place." "Yes." The second agreement hurt him. June saw it, but agreement was what he had come for. He looked toward the window. Bare apple branches crossed the glass. "I thought if you moved behind my garage, I'd know you were okay. I also thought you'd cook sometimes, help me keep the books, be there when relatives came through. I thought if I let you stay free, that made it fair. You wouldn't have been letting me stay. My house would have been on your land, I know. And you planned to store things here, I know, and use my bathroom. That part wasn't my best thought. It was memorable." He rubbed one hand over his face. "I made room for you the way I make room in the garage, by moving my things into yours." June looked at him. It was not a beautiful apology. It was better. It contained the thing he had actually done. "I made it easy for you to think that way," she said. He frowned. "You didn't make me bring Marla and Vince." "No, but I spent years saying I didn't mind. I stored your things. I cooked because you might stop by. I fixed problems before you asked. Then I kept a private record of all of it and expected everyone to understand the total." Eric looked up. "You have a record?" "In my head." "Good. I was worried there was a spreadsheet. There could have been." He laughed softly, then grew serious again. "What I said about not calling me when another tree falls, I didn't mean that. You meant it when you said it. For about 10 seconds. It lasted longer on my side." He nodded. "I'm sorry." June traced the chip in Walter's mug with her thumb. She could absolve him. She knew the sentences that would do it. "You were upset. I understand. We're family." Each was partly true. Together they would close the subject before either of them learned how to live differently. "I accept that you're sorry," she said. "I'm not ready to act like it didn't happen." His face tightened, but he stayed seated. "What does that mean?" "It means you don't get a key." "I didn't ask for one. I know. That's progress." He looked toward the door. June let him choose. After a moment, he leaned back against the cedar wall. "Do I get chicken salad?" "Not today. You always have chicken salad." "I ate it." "All of it?" "I'm discovering appetite in my old age." This time he smiled. They talked for another 20 minutes. Nothing was settled beyond the fact that he had come alone, and June had let him in. When he left, he carried the empty grocery sack and his cup to the sink. He rinsed it. Repair came in uneven visits. Eric appeared the next Saturday to inspect the handrail and asked before tightening one bolt. He missed 2 weekends after that. He attended the orchard's spring pruning day and argued with Cal about pressure washers. Neither man had enough affection for the other to become polite. In May, Eric invited June to dinner. The meal was takeout eaten at his kitchen table. He did not ask her to bring anything or balance his checkbook. When she left, he handed her a container of leftovers. She accepted it. Claire hired a part-time bookkeeper in June. She told June by placing the final check for their scheduled sessions on Walter's desk. "Am I fired?" June asked. "You're being promoted to mother. Does it pay?" Worse hours, better coffee. June continued helping Odessa 4 hours each month. The orchard earned enough during early apple season to replace a failing irrigation pump without touching Odessa's household savings. Cal still owed money, but the amount moved in only one direction. Nothing became perfect. Dean occasionally bought supplies before completing his own request form. Claire still arrived with opinions disguised as emergencies. Len left the golf clubs in June's clearing after deciding the orchard needed recreation. June made him remove them. The tiny house developed a leak beneath the kitchen sink, one mouse and a porch board that squeaked despite 3 repairs. June's emergency account grew slowly. Some months, it did not grow at all. On the anniversary of Walter's death, the orchard smelled of warm grass and early apples. June spent the morning alone. She made coffee in his chipped mug and sat at his desk with the old calendar open to the month his handwriting stopped. Grief had changed since the year before. It no longer entered every room ahead of her. It waited in certain objects and rose when touched. At noon, June drove into town. She returned with a narrow black metal porch chair, a box of screws, and a striped cushion. She had measured the porch twice. The chair fit beside the one already there, with 6 inches between them and enough space for the front door to open. Assembly took 40 minutes, 1 dropped washer, and language Walter would have admired. June used his small level to steady the legs, though the porch itself was not perfectly level. When she finished, she sat in the older chair. The new one remained empty. For months she had told herself the porch was too small for 2 chairs. That was true only if both people wanted elbow room. The deeper truth was that one chair had felt safer. One chair could not become an expectation. It could not imply that anyone belonged there more than she did. A truck sounded on the gravel. Eric emerged between the trees carrying a paper sack. He stopped when he saw the second chair. "Is that mine?" he asked. "No." His face fell slightly. June touched the empty seat. "It's for whoever I invite to sit down." He waited. She smiled. "Today, that's you." Eric climbed the porch steps and sat. From the sack, he produced 2 chicken salad sandwiches and placed one in her hand. Across the orchard, Odessa's porch light flashed twice in the afternoon sun. June flashed her phone back, then set it aside.